The narrator expresses a sense of relief now that the difficult work is finally finished. With no patience remaining, the narrator plans to head home and get some proper rest. While being carried away in a large sack, the blonde girl realizes she is being kidnapped. Thrown onto the cold stone ground, the blonde girl cries out in pain and sudden fear. As the beastman unties the bag and looks down, the blonde girl gasps in total shock. Staring at her captor in silence, the blonde girl begins to sweat from the mounting tension. The blonde girl questions the man's identity and asks for his price to set her free. Trembling and holding her hands together, the blonde girl pleads with the stranger for her life. A close-up of the blonde girl's wide eyes shows her growing terror and extreme uncertainty. The man's gray wolf ears and tail twitch, confirming his identity as a powerful beastman. Observing his non-human features, the blonde girl fearfully notes that he is a beastman. Looking down with a heavy and sorrowful gaze, the beastman remains silent before the girl. To her immense surprise, the beastman drops to his knees and bows deeply on the ground. Desperate and bowing low, the beastman begs the blonde girl for her help. He admits it is shameless to kidnap a child, but insists only she can save them. Pressing his hand against the pavement, the beastman continues to beg her for mercy and aid. The blonde girl tells the beastman that he must explain the situation before she helps him. He begs her to save dying children while she wonders if the epidemic has reached them. Deciding to accompany him, the blonde girl walks closely behind the beastman through the night. The two of them walk together along a quiet stone-paved canal under the starlit sky. Covering her nose in disgust, the blonde girl complains about a foul, moldy smell nearby. Stopping at a dark stone entrance, the beastman tells her that they have finally arrived. Looking into the shadows with a single wide eye, the blonde girl is clearly horrified. A group of sick and dirty beastman children huddle together on a bed in the basement. Examining the children, she realizes the infection is much more serious than she first thought. The beastman offers his life if she saves them, but she tells him it is unnecessary. Determined to help, the blonde girl kneels on the floor and prepares her healing magic. Her palms glow with bright light as she places her hands on the stone floor. Streams of blue and white magical energy erupt from her, filling the entire room. The sick beastman children are surrounded by swirling light as the healing process begins. A massive, glowing magic circle appears on the floor, encompassing the children in its light. The beastman tells the children to be calm and explains she is there to heal them. He reassures the children, telling them to trust him and not be afraid of the light. Straining under the pressure of her power, the blonde girl shouts as the magic intensifies. Brilliant sparkles of magical light fill the basement as the purification spell reaches its peak. The healing energy begins to clear the air, removing the foul odors and the sickness. Looking up in awe, the children watch as the bright, magical particles float around them. Noticing his skin is clearing, a young beastman boy touches his face in utter disbelief. Glowing particles continue to dance through the air as the healing magic slowly fades away. The beastman children look at each other with joy, feeling healthy for the first time. Resting on the floor, another healed child wakes up as the infection finally disappears. Exhausted, the blonde girl thinks that her power has purified even the basement's stagnant air. The beastman weeps and thanks her while she tells him to take the children and escape. He says they will move the children but refuses to run, fearing for their future safety. A rope suddenly snares the beastman's neck as soldiers arrive, leaving the blonde girl in shock. The brown-haired man grabs the blonde girl's shoulder and she calls out to him as her father. Shanna's mother and a group of guards rush in, asking if Shanna is unharmed as she calls out to her mother. A guard kicks the beastman to the ground while brutally pulling the rope around his neck. Bound and held at sword point, the beastman kneels before Shauna and her high-ranking parents. Seeing the violence, Shauna reaches out her hand and screams for the guards to stop. Kyle asks if Shauna is hurt, and she clarifies the beastman did not harm her. Shanna looks up with a stunned expression as she processes the chaos of the rescue. Shanna explains that the beastman apologized for the kidnapping while guards hold him at spare point. Pointing to the children, Shanna notes that the beastman could not have treated them alone. Shanna gasps with wide eyes and her hand on her chest during the emotional confrontation. Anais sighs and decides to let the matter go since Shauna is safe and unharmed. Expressing relief, Anais acknowledges that the beastman only acted out of desperation to save children. Anais asks Kyle if he is okay with her decision, and he defers to her judgment. The narrator observes the sleeping beastman children, noting they were unexpected targets for epidemic control. Kyle and Anais discuss how the beastman's high immunity usually protects them from such contagions. Looking deeply worried, Shanna realizes that the epidemic might continue to spread despite her efforts. Shanna wrings a damp cloth while reflecting on the tragic nature of the children's suffering. In a flashback, the narrator recalls her past life where she felt powerless to help. The narrator remembers watching her younger sister, Mia, suffer from a terrible fever long ago. Returning to the present, Shauna raises her hand to get her mother's attention for something. Surrounded by vibrant white flowers, Shanna cheers with newfound determination to save as many as possible. A close-up of Shauna shows her bright and hopeful smile as she looks at her parents. Kyle and Anais dote on Shanna with hearts and sparkles, completely overwhelmed by her adorable nature. A young beastman girl with black ears smiles happily, grateful for the miraculous healing she received. The arrogant crown prince is introduced, looking noble yet cold as he claims ownership of Shauna. Shanna stands with her family and the prince, wondering if her hospital can open safely. The scene shifts to the narrator's past life, where she collapses on her bed after work. She feels her consciousness fading and realizes with grim clarity that she is finally dying. Reflecting on years of endless overwork, she accepts that this final rest was perhaps inevitable. As she closes her eyes, the scene transitions into a vast and freezing snowy mountain range. Reincarnated as a baby in the snow, she wonders why she has returned in this form. Shivering in the freezing wind, she wishes for a quick death if she must die again. The baby looks up with wide, vibrant green eyes as she notices a large presence approaching. A massive white creature walks through the blizzard, leaving deep tracks toward the abandoned baby. A giant white wolf with piercing purple eyes looms over the baby, observing her with curiosity. Terrified, the baby screams that being eaten by a wolf is not what she meant by rest. The baby notices a deep, bloody wound on the wolf's leg and wonders how it happened. To the baby's shock, the giant wolf leans down and begins to lick her face gently. She realizes she isn't freezing, but fears she is being prepared as a meal instead. A close-up of the wolf's leg shows a significant injury staining its white fur with blood. Glowing with intense light, the baby's innate magic begins to swirl around the wolf's open wound. The baby's eyes glow with a soft green light as her power reacts to the creature's pain. Bright golden vines of magical energy wrap around the wolf's leg, sealing the injury with light. The wolf stands tall again, the blood gone as magical particles float around its healed limb. The baby looks up at the massive predator, completely confused by the strange turn of events. Curling its large body around her, the wolf provides warmth to the shivering baby in the snow. Looking at the wolf, the baby realizes her magic healed it and wonders about her powers. Feeling a sudden wave of warmth, the baby relaxes and finds herself growing extremely sleepy. She struggles to stay awake, knowing that falling asleep in the cold can be fatal. A pair of dark, formal boots suddenly appears in the snow next to the resting pair. A young blonde boy in a regal dark cloak stands on the mountain, watching them quietly. The blonde boy stares down at the baby with a calm and observant gaze amidst the snow. Tucked against the wolf's fur, the baby smiles happily, finally feeling safe and warm. A blurry vision of a blonde woman appears, calling out the name Shauna with great urgency. Shanna's parents appear in a memory, crying out her name as she recalls her current identity. Holding her tightly, Anais expresses her deep gratitude and relief that Shauna has finally woken up. Anais blames herself for Shanna's kidnapping, but Kyle insists the nanny's betrayal was impossible to predict. Despairing, Anais notes that Shauna was left in a hunting ground and saved only by the prince. Kyle comforts his weeping wife, while the baby wonders if these emotional people are her new parents. Wrapped in blankets, the baby finds the entire situation deeply embarrassing as she is being doted on. Anais looks down at the child, realizing it has been hours since her last meal. The baby is horrified when her mother offers milk, mentally refusing to give in to her hunger. Shanna reflects on the difficulty of acting like a baby while possessing the consciousness of a grown adult. As her mother approaches for a feeding, the baby screams internally in a desperate, futile protest. The scene shifts to the baby's opulent nursery, where she rests alone in her large white crib. Lying on her back, the baby remains still as she processes the surreal reality of her new life. Shanna admits that being warm and well-fed has finally allowed her adult mind to function properly again. Looking at her small limbs, she concludes that she has definitely been reincarnated into the body of Shauna. Staring at the ornate ceiling, the baby wonders about her location and the nature of this new world. The baby attempts to groan in frustration, but only a soft, nonsensical sound escapes her tiny lips. Frustrated by her physical limitations, Shanna laments that she cannot even kick her blankets away properly. A large, decorative door creaks open, signaling the arrival of a visitor to the quiet nursery. Looking through the crib bars, the baby is surprised to see a young blonde boy entering the room. The blonde boy leans over the crib, observing the small baby with a quiet and steady gaze. Standing among white roses, the blonde boy offers a gentle and warm smile to the infant. He notices that she has kicked off her blankets and scolds her lightly for her restless behavior. The prince explains that he visited in secret, having hidden the fact she was found with a wolf. Staring up at him, the baby realizes this young boy is the prince who rescued her. The boy begins to question the strange events surrounding her rescue on the snowy mountain range. He recalls following a trail of blood to a wolf that was miraculously healed without a single scratch. The blonde prince looks down at her with a knowing expression, as if sensing her secret. He continues to observe the silent baby, his presence adding to the heavy tension in the nursery. Annoyed by his presence and cryptic talk, the baby decides to fake a cry to drive him away. Shauna stares at the prince with wide eyes, sweating as she wonders what his intentions truly are. The prince sees right through her act and bluntly tells her to stop pretending to cry. Offended by his tone, he admits he planned to raise her himself, but decided her safety with her parents was enough. The blonde boy pauses near the railing, preparing to leave the nursery as the visit concludes. Turning back for a final look, the prince wears a mysterious smile before departing the room. Days pass as the sun shines over the Duke's massive estate where Shauna now resides. Shauna reflects on her unlikely rebirth as the precious and only daughter of a powerful ducal family. The baby lies in her crib, looking thoughtful as she adapts to the routine of infancy. Shanna describes the humiliation of a life dictated by the basic cycles of eating, sleeping, and diapers. Lying still, the baby waits for the day to begin while staring blankly at the ceiling. Sensing a familiar presence, the baby looks toward the door as she anticipates her parents' arrival. Anais rushes in with joy while Kyle playfully complains about her claiming Shauna all for herself. Checking on the baby, Anais lovingly asks if Shauna slept well through the May. Anais picks up the baby, offering her comfort and affection as the child looks on in surprise. Held closely by her mother, the baby observes Anais with a mixture of curiosity and growing concern. Anais is suddenly gripped by a violent coughing fit, causing the baby to watch in alarm. Kyle supports the ill Anais while Shanna worries that her mother's health was ruined by the kidnapping. Reaching out a tiny hand, the baby touches her mother's neck, desperate to ease her obvious suffering. As Shauna touches her mother's face, a soft magical glow begins to emanate from her small hand. The baby feels her innate magical power being pulled from deep within her to heal her mother. A brilliant flash of light fills the room as the baby's healing magic erupts to save Anais. Kyle notices the pain has finally subsided, and Anais confirms she is feeling better. Surprised by the sudden recovery, Anais wonders if Shauna's healing magic was the cause. Kyle agrees with his wife as they both look down at their silent daughter. Kyle urgently orders the staff to summon healers and mages to examine the situation. Anais dotes on her tiny daughter, deeply moved that such a small child helped her. Feeling drained, Shauna wonders what happened to her as a wave of sleepiness takes over. A priest expresses skepticism about whether a mere infant could truly possess powerful healing magic. Kyle stares coldly at the official, asking if he is suggesting that his testimony is false. The priest explains that healing is a divine gift, while Shauna wonders who the man is. Kyle suggests that his daughter might have cast the spell unconsciously due to her immense talent. The priest admits that as the daughter of a great mage, Shauna's potential is likely extraordinary. He explains that true healing is about more than mana, complicating the mystery of Shauna's power. Anais looks on with a troubled expression as she processes the priest's cryptic explanation. The priest points out that the miraculous event contradicts everything known about common magical experiences. Kyle demands confirmation of his wife's health, and the priest assures him she is perfectly fine. Lying in her crib, the baby reflects on the strange sensation of power leaving her body. Shauna realizes the prince's earlier words about her healing the wolf were actually true. As Kyle comforts her, Shayna realizes she can no longer feel the magical energy within herself. The baby is relieved to see her mother's complexion has finally returned to Nal. The scene shifts to the massive ducal estate standing silent under the bright crescent moon. Kyle monitors the baby, noting that her breathing and magical energy have finally stabilized. Kyle worries about the price Shanna paid for the healing and decides to wait and see. Kyle vows to protect Shauna at any cost, while Anais fears interest from the temple. To ensure Shauna's secret remains safe, Kyle decides the priest who examined her must be silenced. In a distant tavern, a white-haired man sits at the bar beside a dark-haired companion. The companion is surprised to see that the white-haired man's leg injury has vanished completely. Renat, the white-haired man, calmly explains that a human baby was responsible for his miraculous healing. His friend is incredulous, so Renat explains how the blonde prince found her in the snow. A close-up of Renat's violet eyes shows him lost in thought regarding the small human. He recalls the young blonde prince standing alone in the blizzard on the snowy mountain range. Renat concludes the baby is better off with the prince since he cannot raise a child himself. Renat wonders if the girl will stay kind, but his friend remains skeptical of all humans. Renat acknowledges the point while staring into his drink, seemingly unconvinced by his friend's cynicism. He remembers the baby looking up at him with vibrant green eyes and no fear whatsoever. Renat expresses a flicker of regret, admitting he should have kept the special human baby himself. The white-haired man wears a soft smile while a small mascot character appears in the corner. Time passes over the Duke's estate as the seasons shift and the grounds remain impeccably kept. A young girl with blonde hair and green eyes walks gracefully through the sunlit palace gardens. Narration notes that years have passed quickly since the day Shauna saved her mother's life. Shauna, now 5 years old, explains she has been confined to the mansion for her safety. She spent her time mastering healing clay, noting that her magical skills have improved significantly. A maid calls out for Shauna, who laments 4 years of training under overprotective parents. Determined to find freedom, the young girl hides and vows not to let the staff catch her. A gray-haired maid effortlessly lifts a heavy stone structure while searching for the hidden girl. The estate's formidable staff members are introduced, each possessing incredible martial and magical abilities. Shanna acknowledges their strength but remains committed to escaping the mansion to see the world. The green-haired maid suddenly spots Shauna and begins to chase after the fleeing 5-year-old. A close-up shows a foot stepping down firmly as the pursuit across the garden intensifies. Surprised by a sudden movement, Shauna looks up as something descends toward her from above. The maid drops down from the sky, startling Shauna and causing her to scream in terror. A firm hand suddenly seizes the light blue patterned fabric of Shayna's fleeing dress. The maid declares the game of hide-and-seek finished, ordering Shauna to be a good ball. Shayna demands to be released, complaining she is bored of hearing the same childish fairy tales. The maid suggests playing with blocks, but Shauna crossly rejects the idea as repetitive and boring. A miniature icon of the green-haired maid suggests telling her an adventure story instead. Shanna retorts that she has already memorized those stories and could even recite them herself. The maids praise Shayna's intelligence, but the girl insists she only wants to learn magic. Shanna reflects on her intense curiosity regarding the magical powers her new parents possess. A formal portrait depicts the Duchess as a powerful mage alongside the Duke's martial prowess. The green-haired maid suggests that if Shauna is truly curious, she should ask the Duke. The maids explain that neither parent could ever refuse a direct request from their daughter. The green-haired maid giggles into her hand, amused by Shauna's determination to learn magic. Despite her adult pride, Shayna decides that leveraging her childish charm is her only option. Shanna asks for her father's location, and the maid directs her toward his private study. Shauna announces her departure while the maid tries to insist on accompanying her to the study. The young girl commands the staff to stay behind, insisting on going to see him alone. The gray-haired maid sighs in defeat, reluctantly agreeing to let the determined child go unaccompanied. The ornate chandeliers hang from the high ceiling, swaying slightly as someone walks through the hall. Close-up of Shauna's small blue shoes as they produce a distinct noise with every step. Shanna laments the embarrassing squeaky shoes, but acknowledges they are necessary to keep the staff away. Kyle hears a noise from his desk and looks up toward the entrance of his study. Shayna peeks around the large, decorated door and calls out to her father in greeting. Kyle smiles warmly and asks if Shayna has finally come to pay him a visit. Shanna rushes into her father's arms, claiming she missed him to hide her true intentions. Kyle correctly guesses that Shauna wants something from him, which catches the young girl off guard. He notes how rare it is for her to visit him, prompting her to reveal her request. Shayna hesitates for a moment, her face showing the pressure of making her big request. The girl excitedly asks to see magic, catching the Duke by surprise with her sudden request. Shanna describes flash and fire magic, but Kyle insists she must get her mother's permission first. Shauna argues that her mother always refuses her, but Kyle defends Anis's cautious and protective nature. Shayna puts on a cute act, claiming she just wants to see how cool Anais is. Kyle calls out to his wife, revealing that Shayna has made her feelings on magic clear. Anais enters the room and jokingly scolds Shayna for trying to bypass her by asking Kyle. Shanna pouts that her father is easier to talk to because Anais always says no. Anais asks if Shayna is truly that curious, and the girl eagerly begs for a demonstration. The Duchess decides she has no choice and prepares to manifest a magical spell for Shauna. A small, vibrant flame flickers to life as Anais summons her power into her open palm. Kyle suggests moving to the training grounds so Anais can show Shauna something far more impressive. Shanna cheers with excitement, declaring her desire to learn how to use magic just like them. Anais gently explains that Shanna cannot learn magic, prompting the girl to demand a clear explanation. Shanna looks stunned as her mother explains that she lacks the mana required to cast spells. Shanna insists she can do it, but Anais apologizes, saying the impossible cannot be granted. Shauna's eyes well with tears as she processes the crushing disappointment of being unable to learn. Anais demonstrates a large flame, explaining it as a goal for Shauna's distant future through study. Shanna is horrified after her mother estimates it would take 10 years of training to succeed. Following the conversation, a promotional notice appears over a scene of Kyle comforting his young daughter. Shanna breaks down into loud sobs, devastated by the realization that magic is currently beyond her. Anais apologizes for making Shauna sad and offers snacks or stories to help cheer her up. Shanna rejects the distractions, through her tears insisting that she only wants to see more magic. Realizing she cannot calm Shauna otherwise, Anais agrees to take her daughter to the training grounds. Kyle, Anais, and Shauna stand in the center of the massive stone training grounds. Lloyd approaches the family from behind, calling out to the Duke to get his attention. Lloyd informs his lord that the training grounds have been cleared for the demonstration. Kyle explains Shanna's interest in magic when Lloyd asks about the sudden occasion. Lloyd dotes on Shanna, but Kyle crossly orders him to stop and stand guard. Shanna reacts with absolute wonder as Anais manifests a hexagonal magical shield around them. Anais tells Shauna to watch closely before initiating her next magical demonstration. Shanna cheers with excitement as Anais unleashes a powerful burst of purple energy. Anais demonstrates a wind spell, creating a massive swirling vortex for Shauna to observe. Shanna expresses her pure joy and admiration for her mother's incredible magical abilities. Shauna suddenly stops cheering and looks toward the distance with a confused expression. Shanna spots two red-haired children hiding behind a stone structure across the training grounds. Shanna wonders who the hidden people are, noting that entry to the grounds is restricted. Anais demonstrates a massive wall of fire, further showcasing her immense power to Shauna. Shanna is initially impressed by the fire magic until something suddenly catches her attention. Shanna sees the magical flames burning dangerously close to where the two children are hiding. Shanna frantically screams for her mother to wait as Kyle looks on in surprise. Kyle turns around just as the two red-haired boys flee from their hiding spot. The boys let out a loud shout as they scramble to escape the training area. One of the boys cries out in pain after tripping and falling during their escape. The grand noble estate stands prominently under the bright sky as the scene shifts. Kyle stands before the two red-haired boys who are bowing deeply in apology.
Shanna asks her father for the identity of the two mysterious children standing before them. Kyle identifies the boys as the sons of Sir Lloyd, the estate's head knight.
Anais and Lloyd check on the children, asking if they have sustained any serious injuries. The red-haired boys shout in unison that they are perfectly fine despite the close call. Lloyd dismisses their injuries as minor singes, scolding them for their lack of an excuse. Kyle suggests that Lloyd's harsh approach might prevent the boys from admitting their pain. The red-haired twins insist they are not hurt at all despite their disheveled appearance. Lloyd sighs over the awkward introduction before ordering his sons to greet Lady Shauna. Kyle introduces Shayna as the young lady the two boys will one day serve. Shayna looks surprised and confused by the idea of being served by the two children.
Lloyd places his hands on his son's shoulders, guaranteeing they will grow into fine men.
Shanna stares curiously at one of the twins, who maintains a stoic and serious expression.
The red-haired boy looks directly at Shanna with a focused and determined gaze.
Anais acknowledges the boys' frequent visits, but insists their unauthorized entry must be corrected. Kyle asks for their reason, believing the boys must have had a purpose for sneaking in. Lloyd orders his sons, Ian and Leon, to answer the Duke's question immediately. The red-haired twins look at each other nervously before preparing to explain their actions. Ian explains they came to meet the young lady they are destined to serve as lights. The boy admits they wanted to see Shauna no matter what during their visit. He explains that pledging loyalty is difficult when they have never actually seen the person. The boy questions how they can find strength for someone they do not even know. The two red-haired boys look up with renewed determination as they finish their explanation. After listening to them, Shauna asks her father to put her down on the ground. Kyle sets Shayna down and her squeaky shoes produce a distinct noise with every step. Shanna stands before the two boys, looking up at them with curiosity and interest. Shayna steps closer and directly asks the boy in front of her for his ma'am. The red-haired boy identifies himself as Ian while looking back at the young girl. The second red-haired twin provides his name as Leon, completing their introduction to Shauna. The red-haired boy objects, stating he also dislikes serving those who do not wish to be served. Shayna encourages the twins to ignore their father's expectations and prioritize their own personal happiness instead. The twins are visibly shaken, shouting in disbelief at Shayna's unexpected and bold suggestion to them. Shayna doubles down on her advice, telling the boys they should never do anything they truly dislike. Shayna sighs and crosses her arms, expressing her distaste for people who claim to dislike her too.
One of the red-haired boys warns Shauna that she will eventually regret dismissing such talented future knights.
Shayna asserts her independence, claiming her parents already provide all the protection she will ever need. Shayna gently places her small hands over the boys' wounded hands, telling them to avoid getting hurt. Shayna closes her eyes and focuses, summoning a soft light that begins to envelop the boys' hands. Ian and Leon stare at their hands in absolute shock as their minor injuries completely vanish instantly. Anais enters and expresses surprise at seeing Shanna again, but the girl dismisses the concern entirely.
Shanna looks up with a blank, confused expression as if she didn't hear the previous question asked.
The red-haired twins look devastated, asking Shauna if she truly has no use for their service anymore. One of the boys shouts defensively, demanding to know who claimed they didn't want to serve her. Shayna covers her ears to block out the shouting while they insist they never actually disliked her.
Ian looks at Shauna and clarifies that they were simply curious, not that they felt any hatred.
Shanna is left feeling completely bewildered, unable to fathom what the twins actually want from her now. Shanna tells the boys she isn't fragile and insists they shouldn't risk injury just to see her. One twin stubbornly crosses his arms and downplays his earlier injury as if it was absolutely nothing. Shanna is stunned by their denial, pointing out how clearly hurt they were just a few moments ago. Shanna's eyes soften as she looks at the boys with a small, knowing smile on her face. The young girl stands confidently between the two tall red-haired boys in the middle of the grounds. One of the twins mumbles to himself, insisting they never felt forced to take their knightly path.
Shanna asks if they hate her, prompting a twin to explain they can't judge her so soon.
Shayna admits her reluctance to accept responsibility for others, which visibly irritates the determined red-haired twins.
Shanna offers a compromise, suggesting that they could perhaps become friends instead of following formal roles. The red-haired boy stares at Shauna with a look of intense, silent scrutiny after her friendly offer. One of the twins suddenly turns and bolts away, leaving Shanna standing there in total confusion. The remaining twin delivers a final declaration, vowing they will definitely become her knights regardless of rejection. Shanna stands alone as her parents and the knight walk away, sharing a laugh at the scene. Shanna looks drained, muttering about how they just left her alone after such an intense interaction. A luxurious black carriage travels along a path beneath the vibrant orange glow of a setting sun. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows across the road as the carriage continues. Inside the moving carriage, one of the twins reflects on finally meeting the legendary Lady Shauna today. He notes that while she seemed ordinary, her stubbornness made a far deeper impression than he anticipated. The boy wonders if the light he saw earlier was actually the rare and fabled healing magic. He decides that serving someone who cares for them as Shauna does might actually be a good fate. The red-haired boy looks down thoughtfully at his hand, remembering the strange sensation of being healed.
He laments Shauna's refusal, noting they didn't spend years training just for their own personal enjoyment.
The twins debate whether to push the issue, concluding they must succeed so their efforts aren't wasted. A close-up reveals the boys' intense blue eyes filled with a newfound sense of purpose and resolve. As the sun sets, they resolve to persist in their efforts until they successfully convince Shauna to hire them. The scene shifts to a grand office where Anais sits at her desk while Kyle stands nearby. Kyle and Anais engage in a serious discussion regarding Shayna's future within the quiet, moonlit office. Anais worries about Shanna socializing, but Kyle argues she needs companions her own age to grow properly.
Anais looks down at the documents on her desk, remaining silent as she considers her husband's words.
Kyle reminds Anais of Shayna's resilient reaction when she first learned she couldn't use any magic spells.
Kyle praises Shauna as a strong child, noting she has already moved past her initial magical disappointment.
Kyle reaches out and gently places his hand over Anais', offering her a sense of comfort. Kyle proposes expanding Shauna's horizons gradually as she grows, beginning with allowing her more social freedom. Kyle vows to protect Shayna, claiming he'll overturn the continent if anything happens to her. Anais responds with a soft smile, finding comfort in her husband's unwavering and fierce devotion. The morning sun illuminates the grand estate, signaling the start of a quiet new week. Shayna sits alone on a swing in the garden, lost in her own private thoughts.
A week passes since the twins left, and Shayna notes their continued and mysterious absence.
Shanna reflects on her need for friends, acknowledging that older boys likely wouldn't play with her. A maid interrupts Shauna's solitude, excitedly announcing that she has an unexpected visitor waiting nearby. Surprised and skeptical, Shauna questions if the guest has actually come specifically to see her. Driven by curiosity, Shayna runs across the garden path to meet her mysterious and new visitor. Shanna bumps into a handsome blonde boy, causing a sudden and clumsy collision between them. The blonde boy offers a polite apology as Shayna gazes up at him in utter shock. The boy smiles down at Shauna, his confident expression radiating an air of nobility and grace. Recognition flashes in Shanna's eyes as she begins to realize exactly who the boy is. The blonde boy stands tall in the garden, his presence commanding immediate and silent attention. He maintains a smug, composed demeanor while observing the young girl standing directly before him. Shayna dismissively calls him a kid, a comment that clearly irritates the proud and noble boy. Kyle arrives and urges the prince to calm down while Shauna greets her father happily. Kyle asks the prince, Raven, if he remembers Shauna, the baby he saved 4 years ago. Shanna is visibly shaken by the revelation that this boy was her secret and early savior. Raven authoritatively tells the Duke to withdraw so the children can play together alone. He further dismisses the servants, insisting on privacy for his interaction with the young lady Shauna. Shayna watches the prince with a mixture of confusion and growing intrigue as he takes charge. Kyle gently pats Shayna's head and encourages her to have fun with her royal guest. The adults and servants depart, leaving the two children alone in the sprawling, sunny garden. Raven sighs while Shayna stares at him, wondering how they will spend their time together. The prince strikes a heroic pose, making a haughty inquiry regarding the young girl's lineage. Shanna cheerfully asks what they should play, but Raven responds with an arrogant and cold smirk. He scoffs at the idea of playing with her, displaying a sudden and haughty attitude. Confused, Shauna asks why he visited if not to play, but he stubbornly denies her suggestion. Raven turns his gaze toward the garden gazebo, appearing distracted by his own secret thoughts. Raven muses about Shanna's healing ability while she declares she won't play with him either. The prince teases Shauna, noting she clearly remembers his name despite her claims of indifference. He laughs as Shauna attempts to storm away, enjoying her obvious frustration with his teasing. Raven follows her, calling her name while she demands that he stop pursuing her immediately. Shayna insists she doesn't want to play, though her curious eyes soon spot something unexpected.
Shauna's attention shifts as she notices a small creature hiding in the grass, calling it a puppy.
Shauna stops to examine the black animal, momentarily forgetting her annoyance with the prince.
Raven reacts with alarm, shouting for Shayna to stay away from the suspicious-looking animal. He warns her that the creature appears dangerous and should not be approached under any circumstances. Raven questions Shauna's awareness of her own protection, but she remains focused on the small creature.
He reflects on how long it took to see her again after saving her years ago.
Raven explains that the garden's protective magic usually prevents any unauthorized or dangerous entities from entering. Shayna looks back with concern, insisting that the prince, Raven, must see that the animal is hurt. Shanna ignores the prince's warning and runs toward the black puppy as he yells for her. Shanna kneels beside the puppy, asking if it's okay while ignoring the prince's loud protests.
The small black puppy lies motionless on the grass, looking vulnerable and in need of help.
As Shauna reaches out, Raven shouts another frantic warning for her not to touch the creature. Shayna ignores him and places her hand on the puppy, which begins to glow with healing energy. Raven pulls Shauna's ear, scolding her for ignoring his warnings while she cries out in pain.
Shayna looks at him with sad eyes, explaining that the poor puppy appeared to be suffering.
Raven scolds Shayna for her reckless behavior while the young girl rubs her sore ear and looks apologetic. The small black puppy lies in the grass, watching the children with wide and intensely curious eyes.
Shanna leans over the animal, gently telling it that it can finally relax now that it has woken up.
The puppy suddenly bites Shayna's finger, prompting a panicked and shocked shout from Raven as he watches the attack.
Raven commands Shayna to stop touching the puppy while she tells the animal to release its bite first. Shayna dismisses her injury, claiming the puppy was just surprised, which visibly irritates the frustrated blonde prince.
Shanna encourages the puppy to open its mouth while insisting its aggressive behavior was merely a startled reaction.
Raven warns that the puppy won't survive if the Duke sees her finger bleeding because of the animal's bite. Shayna gazes at the puppy with intense focus, seemingly captivated by the small and mysterious black creature. Shanna recalls a past life where she and a friend loved dogs but were never able to raise one.
A close-up reveals the puppy's face as it continues to stare up at the young blonde girl with interest.
Shanna finds the puppy adorable even as Raven points out the blood on her finger and predicts a royal fuss. Shauna asks Raven to keep the bite a secret, but he notes the estate maids won't be easily fooled.
Raven roughly grabs Shanae's arm, demanding that she immediately stay far away from the suspicious-looking black animal.
The children walk away together while the puppy remains behind, growling aggressively in the middle of the vibrant garden. Shanna wonders if the puppy was previously mistreated, explaining its wary and defensive behavior toward the two children.
Raven tells Shauna to use her magic to heal her hand, but she admits she is unable to do so.
Raven is stunned when Shanna explains that while she healed the dog, her magic doesn't work on her own injuries.
Raven yells at Shayna for her lack of self-preservation, while she accuses him of being completely heartless.
Raven stares at Shauna with a serious expression, suddenly declaring that she belongs to him now. Shanna rejects his claim of ownership, but Raven insists that because he saved her, she is practically his.
A close-up of Shauna's eye captures her shock as she processes Raven's arrogant and highly possessive declaration.
Shanna reflects on Raven being the very first person she encountered upon entering this strange and new world. Raven warns Shauna that the creature might not actually be a puppy despite its deceivingly small and cute appearance. Raven stands protectively in front of Shayna as a sudden and magical transformation begins to take place before them.
Shanna is startled as she realizes the animal is a beast person, witnessing the creature's dramatic and unexpected change.
A young girl with black hair and dog ears appears, illustrating the lesson of not judging by appearances alone.
Shauna addresses Raven, noting the incredible and sudden transformation of the creature they just encountered.
The beast person girl looks wounded and afraid, while the narrative warns against judging others by their initial appearance.
Shanna is amazed by the transformation, while Raven remains silent and wary of the newly revealed girl.
Shayna kindly reaches out to the beast person, telling the girls she doesn't need to be afraid of them.
Panicked maids run toward the children, shouting that Lady Shauna must stay away from the potentially dangerous visitor. Maria scoops Shauna up to carry her away while the young girl calls out the maids in surprise.
The maids surround the cowering beast person girl as Raven and Maria keep a safe and watchful distance. Maria asks if the girl is poisonous, but Ella clarifies she is a large breed pup with a similar human form.
Ella prepares a rope to restrain the beast person while another maid watches the situation with a grim expression.
Shanna shouts a desperate plea for Ella to stop, but the maids ignore her to secure the visitor.
Maria holds the struggling Shauna tight, lamenting that she shouldn't have left the young girl's side for so long. Ella tightens the rope while Maria carries the protesting Shauna back toward the main house of the estate.
Ella looks toward her companions and asks for guidance on how they should handle the restrained beast person.
A decision is made to immediately report the discovery and Shanna's injury to Lady Anais for final judgment.
The beast person girl lies tied up and helpless on the grass, looking up with a defiant and angry gaze.
The servants and children gather in the grand hall to present the situation to the Duke and Duchess.
Anais looks down at the captive girl and demands to know exactly what has happened on the garden grounds.
Anais notes Shanna's injury and wonders why Kyle allowed her to get hurt while he was standing nearby.
Kyle looks away with a guilty and awkward expression, unable to provide a satisfactory explanation for his daughter's wound.
Anais mentions the prince's presence as Raven defends himself, claiming he tried to stop Shauna from approaching.
Anais teases Raven's leadership skills while he notes that her daughter is essentially a one-girl disaster squad.
Anais expresses her deep fear regarding Shauna being hurt, but the girl insists that it doesn't hurt at all.
Anais praises Shauna's strength but points out that she was bleeding, expressing her maternal concern and relief.
Shanna dismisses her injury as a mere accident, but Anais observes her daughter's clear desire to keep the puppy.
Shauna asks for permission to keep the pet, while Anais privately seethes, refusing to forgive the beast for hurting her.
Anais refuses to allow the pet, warning Shauna that the creature might turn on her and bite again at any moment.
Shanna gazes at her mother with a skeptical and unconvinced expression, doubting the animal would ever behave aggressively toward her again.
Anais explains that demi-humans are fierce beings that cannot be tamed without a slave collar, illustrating her point with a dark, predatory silhouette. Shanna points toward the captive beast person, insisting the child is injured, but Anais coldly claims the girl appears perfectly fine to her.
Shanna worries her mother would be angrier if she knew she used healing magic, reflecting on how the beast person reminds her of Mina. The sight of the abandoned beast person causes Shauna deep emotional pain as she draws parallels to the suffering of her past friend.
Observing her mother's stern and uncompromising expression, Shayna realizes that Anais will never naturally agree to let the captive stay.
Faced with her mother's stubborn refusal, Shauna decides she has no choice but to resort to more dramatic and manipulative measures.
Shanna lets out a small, pained sound as she begins to prepare herself for a planned and highly emotional performance.
The young girl begins to wail loudly, shocking Anais with a sudden and intense display of grief that echoes throughout the hall.
Shanna forces herself to cry by thinking of the saddest things possible, determined to squeeze out every tear for maximum impact.
Anais reacts with genuine panic, noting that Shauna has only ever pretended to cry before and has never actually shed real tears.
Shayna begs her mother not to send the creature away, prompting a desperate Anais to ask what she can do to help. Shauna insists she must stay with the puppy, and Anais finally relents, begging her daughter to stop crying immediately.
Shanna hugs her mother tightly while hiding a smug, triumphant expression, thinking to herself that Anais is a total sucker for her.
Having secured her victory, Shauna stands before the kneeling and captive black-haired girl in the center of the grand room.
Ella maintains a firm grip on the struggling beast person while looking down at the captive with a serious and watchful expression.
Shanna commands Ella to release the girl, confidently declaring that her mother has already given her official permission for the pet to stay.
Shanna reaches out toward the black-haired girl, who looks down with a mixture of fear and uncertainty as the blonde approaches.
Shanna crouches down to meet the beast person at eye level, offering a soft and comforting presence to the wary, captive girl.
Shanna places a gentle hand on the beast person's shoulder, causing the black-haired girl to flinch and look up with a startled expression.
To the surprise of everyone present, Shauna pulls the beast person into a warm and protective hug, offering comfort to the lonely girl.
The black-haired girl looks up in total confusion, asking Shauna why she is going through so much trouble for a stranger.
Shauna closes her eyes and smiles brightly, simply telling the beast person that she thinks the girl is incredibly cute. The beast person remains stunned and silent while the estate maids watch the unexpected display of affection from a respectful distance.
Shayna smiles happily as the creature returns to its small puppy form, sleeping peacefully in front of its new blonde owner. Kyle and Anais relax on a sofa in the background while Shauna continues to gush over the adorable sleeping black puppy.
Kyle admits he would have gifted Shauna a puppy much sooner if he had known how much she truly adored them.
Anais and Kyle share a laugh as Anais teases him, claiming she wouldn't understand the puppy's appeal because she finds Shauna cutest.
Shayna looks back at her parents with wide eyes, seeking validation as she asks if the puppy is not the cutest creature ever.
Anais crosses her arms and maintains a playful but skeptical expression, admitting she is not quite sure about the puppy's supposed cuteness.
Anais eventually uses magic to confirm the puppy is harmless, allowing it to stay while Raven departs after ensuring Shauna is safe.
Anais claps her hands together with a joyful expression, appearing delighted by the peaceful resolution of the earlier garden commotion.
Shayna leans in close to her mother, offering a sweet and affectionate gesture to show her deep appreciation for the permission.
The young girl showers both Kyle and Anais with affectionate kisses on their cheeks, filling the room with a sense of familial love.
Shanna smiles with pure, unadulterated joy, surrounded by a magical aura of flowers as she celebrates her successful manipulation and new pet.
Kyle and Anais are overwhelmed by Shauna's cuteness, weeping with pride while the young girl looks back with a nervous, sweating expression. Shayna holds out her hands to block her parents' excessive praise, loudly demanding that they stop their flattering comments immediately. Shayna shouts a firm refusal at her parents, who both look back at their daughter with expressions of shock and mild disappointment. Shayna continues her passionate defense, waving her arms while insisting that puppies should be treated with the same care as human babies. Anais explains that beastmen are a unique race whose true age often cannot be accurately judged by their outward physical appearances alone.
Shanna reflects on the creature's previous human form, noting it looked like the prince's age despite the puppy form appearing 2 months old.
Shanna is visibly shocked to learn the creature is actually 10 years old, making her essentially an older sister to the girl. Shayna stares at the sleeping puppy in disbelief, amazed that something so small and vulnerable has actually lived for 10 years.
Kyle explains that some nobles tame these pups to be guards, but often abandon them because they take decades to fully mature.
Anais tells Shauna she must choose a name for her new pet since she has decided to raise the mysterious beast person herself. Shanna wonders if the creature already has a name, reflecting on her simple desire to help an animal that was in pain.
Shanna claims the beast person can leave once healed, suggesting someone might be waiting for her.
Anais observes that the puppy is already healed, while a surprised Shayna reacts with confusion.
Kyle asks if the pet can be removed immediately, causing Shauna to backpedal her statement. Anais and Kyle playfully tease Shayna for contradicting her earlier promise to let the puppy go. Shayna protests being teased by her father, while Kyle finds his daughter's flustered reaction incredibly adorable. Shanna worries the creature might reject her care once it eventually wakes up from its slumber. Shanna gazes at the sleeping puppy, privately wishing they could stay together for a while longer.
The
the scene shifts to the quiet of night as Shayna sleeps soundly in her grand bedroom. A gentle breeze blows through the room as the large balcony doors are silently pushed open.
A mysterious cloaked figure enters the bedroom and approaches the bed where the young girl sleeps.
The intruder looks down at Shayna and commands the young girl to wake up immediately. Shayna groggily sits up and rubs her eyes, wondering who has entered her room so late. A tall, cloaked man with long silver hair stands beside the bed, identifying his current position. Shayna screams in terror while the intruder notes she is much more energetic than their last meeting.
The man complains about the difficulty of visiting since the Duke and Duchess forbade his presence. Shayna asks if he knows her parents and demands to know the mysterious visitor's true identity.
The man asks why Shauna healed a beastman, and she simply replies it was because of injury.
The man questions Shauna's help for a beastman as he adjusts his heavy dark cloak.
The cloaked man's face is fully revealed, showing sharp features, long silver hair, and purple eyes.
Shayna is struck by the visitor's stunning beauty, her eyes widening in a moment of pure shock.
The man asks if he is currently in his wolf form, but Shauna clarifies he appears human. Shayna thinks to herself that the man's overwhelming beauty is truly dazzling to her young eyes.
The man asks if he is frightening, prompting a hesitant denial from the clearly startled young girl.
The silver-haired man steps closer to Shauna, asking why she remains surprised despite her claim.
Silence hangs heavy in the bedroom as the mysterious figure remains unmoving before the young girl.
The black-haired beast person girl suddenly leaps in front of Shauna to protect her from the intruder. The man asks Evelyn why she is interfering, but she insists she has been watching him.
Shayna hears the name Evelyn for the first time, looking up with an expression of pure curiosity.
The beast person girl turns to Shauna and confirms that her actual name is indeed Evelyn.
Shayna struggles to pronounce the name while Evelyn offers to let her use any nickname she prefers.
Shayna apologizes for her difficulty and decides to call her new companion Eve for the time being. The man introduces himself as Renat and asks Shauna to tell him her own name. Renat commands Shauna to move away while the girl complains about his cold and dismissive attitude.
Shayna reacts with sudden, wide-eyed astonishment as a shocking revelation finally clicks within her young mind.
Renat assumes Shauna wouldn't remember a past encounter due to her very young age at the time.
Shauna thanks Renat for his warmth in the past, but he advises her to stop discussing it. Renat warns that Shauna's parents are listening and reveals he actually came to check on Evelyn. Renat explains he found the injured beast person and left her for Shauna to find and heal. Renat admits he gambled on Shauna's kindness, knowing Evelyn would have died if Shauna hated beastmen.
Shayna observes that Renat's personality is the complete opposite of his incredibly handsome and noble appearance.
Evelyn expresses her gratitude while Renat explains that standard healing magic typically fails to work on beastmen. Shayna is stunned to learn this fact, wondering how her powers managed to save the girl's life. Shayna reflects on her unique magic being effective on her mother, the wolf, and Evelyn's wounds.
Renat emphasizes that Shauna's feat is unprecedented, leaving the young girl questioning the truth of his words.
Shayna ignores the magnitude of her power, choosing instead to celebrate Evelyn's recovery with a bright smile. Renat insists that Shauna must understand the greatness of her ability, which is unmatched in the world. Evelyn defends Shauna as just a child, while Renat questions if Evelyn is being swayed by appearances. Evelyn maintains that Shauna is a kind human, but Renat compares humans to those who harmed Evelyn.
Renat and Evelyn argue over her future, with Renat insisting she should live among her own kind.
Evelyn grinds her teeth in frustration, showing a fierce determination to stay with her new human friend. Shayna fiercely protects Evelyn, demanding the silver-haired man stop his bullying while he questions when he ever acted as such. A flustered Shayna confesses her deep desire to remain with Evelyn, leading Renat to finally entrust the girl to her care. Shayna stands frozen in a state of total bewilderment, her hand covering her mouth as she processes Renat's sudden change of heart.
Renat offers a subtle, knowing smirk as he looks back toward Shauna, his silver hair catching the light of the bedroom.
The silver-haired man maintains his calm, slightly amused expression while preparing to depart from the young girl's grand sleeping chambers. Shayna looks at Renat with shock, asking why he is suddenly cooperating after being so firmly against the idea of her keeping the pet. Renat explains that he was merely testing Shauna's resolve regarding Evelyn, noting that he has already secured permission from the girl's parents. Renat glances over his shoulder one last time before stepping out onto the balcony into the quiet, starlit night. The mysterious visitor vanishes in a blur of blue energy, leaving Shauna and Evelyn standing alone in the center of the room. Shayna grumbles to herself with a suspicious expression, feeling as though she has been cleverly manipulated or scammed by Renat's elaborate test. The scene transitions to the following day as Shauna stands in a sunlit hallway surrounded by her attentive estate maids. Shayna carefully cradles the small black puppy in her arms, looking down at the creature with a sense of protective responsibility. The young blonde girl beams with happiness as she hugs the tiny puppy close to her chest, enjoying their quiet morning together. Shayna stares intensely at the puppy, observing its calm demeanor while it remains small and silent in her gentle grasp.
Shayna examines the ornate gemstone necklace around the puppy's neck, recognizing it as a gift from her parents meant to ensure her safety.
Shayna promises the puppy that she will eventually remove the restrictive necklace once she grows older, asking the creature to be patient.
A brown-haired maid gently suggests that Shauna should put the puppy down, but the girl insists on continuing their playtime together.
A red-haired maid suggests they schedule specific playtime after lunch, and a delighted Shauna eagerly agrees to the plan. Shauna's attention is suddenly drawn away as a series of firm knocks echo through the large, ornate doors of the room.
The red-haired maid announces that the twin knights have arrived to see Shauna, much to the young girl's immediate and vocal annoyance.
The maid encourages Shauna to play with the knights instead, leading her away toward the dining hall for her scheduled meal. A title card marks the beginning of the 10th chapter of the story against a bright and clear blue sky.
The view expands to show the magnificent and sprawling architecture of the Duke's estate, surrounded by meticulously manicured gardens and fountains.
Shayna greets an older red-haired man in the garden, who responds with a respectful bow and a formal greeting. Shayna looks skeptically at two young red-haired boys, suspecting they were only brought along to force her into playing with them.
The older red-haired man excuses himself, stating his intention to go meet with Lord Kyle while leaving the children to interact.
Shayna crosses her arms and questions the twins about their sudden visit, reminding them they had previously claimed to be too busy.
The twins explain they have come because they refuse to be outshone by a puppy, expressing a competitive desire to show off their training.
Shayna ignores the boys' competitive posturing to play fetch with Eve, while the twins sigh in frustration at her lack of attention.
The twins reflect on how close Shauna has become with the new pet during the time they spent away at their training sessions.
A green-haired maid approaches and asks Shauna if she would like to play tug-of-war, a suggestion that the girl happily accepts.
Shayna notices the puppy's excitement and wonders if they should use the rope to play together in the garden. Shayna offers the rope to Eve, but she is shocked when the small puppy bites down and pulls with unexpected, overwhelming strength.
The maids cry out in alarm and rush forward as Shayna is jerked forward by the puppy's sudden and powerful tug.
Shayna blinks in confusion, staring at the puppy as she tries to comprehend how such a small creature possessed so much power.
The maids lecture both Shauna and the puppy, reprimanding Eve for pulling too hard and warning Shauna about the inherent dangers.
Shayna admits she almost fell over, realizing with a start that her feet had actually left the ground during the puppy's pull. Shayna gazes at the puppy in shock, marveling at the fact that something so tiny could easily toss her around with a single tug.
A maid with a stern expression advises Shauna that, as Eve's master, she must provide the creature with a very serious warning.
Shauna's face lights up with a radiant and sparkling expression, appearing far more impressed than worried by the puppy's display of strength.
Shayna declares that the puppy is both cute and strong, calling her the absolute best as she happily plays with the creature.
Shayna pets the puppy and asks Eve to be a bit gentler in the future, receiving an enthusiastic bark in response.
Shayna runs joyfully through the garden with the puppy while a worried maid continues to shout warnings about the potential danger.
One maid suggests letting them be since the puppy seems harmless, but the other remains skeptical of the beast person's true nature.
Leon and his twin brother watch Shayna and the puppy from the lawn, observing the energetic and somewhat rough play from afar.
One of the boys asks Leon if he thinks the game is becoming too rough, noting that Shauna is completely focused on the dog.
The twins sit on the grass and complain that Shauna is having a great time with the puppy while completely ignoring their presence.
The boys discuss the dangerous nature of beastmen, worrying that the dog might lose control and mistake Shauna's laughter for a scream. Leon clenches his fist with determination, deciding this is the perfect opportunity to use his skills to protect Shauna from the beast person.
Leon agrees with his brother, hoping that their planned actions will earn their father's praise.
Ian hopes Shayna will acknowledge them as knights, while Leon excitedly leads the charge forward. Leon draws his wooden training sword and rushes toward the small puppy on the lawn.
With a fierce shout, the red-haired boy swings his wooden weapon at the unsuspecting creature.
Shayna turns around in shock, crying out to Leon to stop his sudden, aggressive attack.
The puppy bites the wooden blade, snapping it in two as Leon stares in stunned disbelief.
Leon trembles with rage, devastated that the special sword from his father was easily broken.
Refusing to back down, the boy raises his broken weapon to continue the one-sided fight. Shayna grabs Leon's shoulder, demanding an explanation for his inexplicably hostile and dangerous behavior.
Leon worries for Shauna's safety while remembering Lloyd's stern warning about becoming worthy protectors.
In a memory, Lloyd emphasizes that the boys must strive to become knights for Shauna.
Leon struggles with his overwhelming emotions as he tries to process his failure in the garden.
The puppy bites Leon's leg, causing the boy to cry out in sudden, sharp pain. The chaotic struggle ends with Shauna and Leon both falling backward onto the garden grass.
Both children lie on the lawn, groaning as they recover from the impact of their fall.
Leon quickly jumps up and looks toward Shauna with a look of pure frantic concern. Shayna winces while sitting up, noticing a small, stinging scratch on the back of her hand.
Maids hurry toward the children as they remain seated on the grass following the accident.
The twins stare ahead with empty expressions, overwhelmed by the disastrous turn of their training. The scene transitions to a room where Lloyd stands sternly before his two dejected sons.
Lloyd yells at the boys, demanding they speak up and explain their shameful performance.
The father reprimands them for being easily overpowered by a young beast person during their training.
Lloyd expresses his fury over their failure to protect Shanna, which resulted in her being injured.
Lloyd demands to know why Ian failed to stop Leon, while the boy offers a tearful apology.
Shanna holds the puppy close, listening to the intense scolding happening just a few feet away.
Shanna feels a wave of guilt, worrying that the father is being far too harsh.
A maid comforts Shanna as the young girl continues to observe the unfolding family conflict.
Lloyd disqualifies the boys from knighthood, ordering them to apologize to Shauna for their incompetence.
Shanna stands and shouts at Lloyd, defending the boys against his overly severe disciplinary measures. Lloyd argues that Leon's actions led to Shanna's injury, justifying his decision to punish them.
Shanna dismisses her scratch, highlighting Leon's own injury and questioning Lloyd's lack of fatherly concern. Lloyd claims the boy's injury is normal, but insists that harming one's lord is unforgivable.
Shanna remains frustrated, refusing to accept that the boy's pain should be dismissed so easily.
Shanna firmly declares that if anyone is to scold the twins, it should be her alone.
Lloyd is left speechless and visibly taken aback by the young girl's fierce, protective outburst.
A maid announces she is leaving to update Shanna's parents on the situation once they return.
Lloyd offers a respectful bow and departs, leaving Shauna alone with the two dejected boys. Shanna stands before the twins, who remain silent and hang their heads in deep shame. Shanna calls out to Leon, causing the startled boy to look up with wide, uncertain eyes.
Shanna asks if Leon is all right, insisting on seeing the injury on his bruised leg.
Shanna examines the wound on the boy's leg, acknowledging how painful it must feel.
The twins watch in silence as Shanna prioritizes Leon's well-being over her own small scratch. Shanna smiles warmly, dismissing her own injury while expressing relief that Leon wasn't hurt more.
Leon looks at Shauna with shock, unable to believe that she isn't angry Mahan.
Shanna acknowledges Leon's protective intent, deciding that Lloyd's lecture was punishment enough for both boys.
Leon looks away with a glum expression, still feeling responsible for Shauna's stinging hand.
Shanna offers a radiant and comforting smile to the boy, attempting to lift his heavy spirits.
Leon breaks down in tears, sobbing as he offers Shauna a sincere and heartfelt apology.
Ian begins crying as well, leaving Shauna completely confused by the twins' sudden emotional display. A flustered Shauna shouts at her knights, demanding to know why they are suddenly both blubbering.
Leon and Ian continue to cry uncontrollably, their faces flushed as they sob in the room.
The twins recall growing up serving the Wentworth family and how Shanna's birth changed their world.
The twins remember their father's strict command that their only purpose was to serve and protect Shauna.
A memory shows Lloyd kneeling before Shauna while his sons watch from a distance, feeling like outsiders. The twins recall hating Shauna because their father's obsessive devotion made them feel unloved and ignored.
Shanna tells Leon and Ian to do whatever they want, granting them freedom from their duties. Leon and Ian stare at Shauna in stunned silence, clearly shocked by her unexpected kindness and understanding.
Shanna offers a warm smile and acknowledges how difficult their lives must have been under such pressure.
The boys' eyes well up with tears again as they process Shauna's sincere validation of their struggles.
Overwhelmed by emotion, the twins stand together in silence, their previous animosity toward the girl completely vanished.
Shanna frantically offers to scold Lloyd for his harshness, desperately trying to stop the boys from crying.
The twins continue to sob, realizing that their years of hidden resentment have been rendered entirely meaningless.
A quiet atmosphere settles over the room as the three children sit together, recovering from their emotional outburst. The twins mention Shauna calling them her knights, but she awkwardly denies ever saying such a thing.
The red-haired boy insists they heard her, looking at her with an earnest and hopeful expression.
Shanna crosses her arms and explains that she lacks the personal funds required to pay for their services. Leon questions why she thinks knights serve for money and doubts the Duke's daughter is actually broke.
Shanna confirms she won't hire them for financial reasons, advising the boys to find employment elsewhere. Shanna asks why they can't just be friends instead of knights, hoping to simplify their complicated relationship. The twins immediately reject the idea of friendship, crossing their arms in a firm gesture of refusal.
The boys declare their unified desire to protect Shauna, regardless of any lack of payment or status.
One of the twins suggests that Shanna should use her unique healing abilities to generate her own income.
Shanna blinks in surprise at the suggestion, momentarily speechless as she considers the boys' unexpected business idea. Leon describes his vision of a wealthy estate, encouraging Shauna to capitalize on her special healing power.
Shanna expresses her doubts, worrying that they won't be able to find any patients to treat at all.
Leon confidently promises to source clients for her, determined to make the plan a reality no matter what.
Shanna privately wonders if anyone can just open a clinic and questions the feasibility of treating people. Shanna ponders the logistical requirements of running a medical facility, feeling overwhelmed by the thought of doctors.
Shanna remembers her past successes in treating her mother and the puppy, feeling a spark of confidence.
Shanna considers enlisting the maids and the twins as helpers, beginning to take the clinic idea seriously.
Shanna realizes her wealthy parents would easily fund her, even offering jewels worth several castles without hesitation.
A sudden realization strikes Shanna as she excitedly concludes that opening her own clinic is actually possible.
A transitional moment marks the end of the current discussion as the story moves toward a new day. A boisterous and energetic laugh echoes throughout the grand architecture of the estate under the bright sky. Raven laughs hysterically on the couch while Shauna watches him with an expression of mild annoyance and concern. Raven explains that he only intended to cheer her up, but her reaction has made him feel slighted. After the earlier chaos, the twins quietly departed for home, promising to return to see Shauna again. The boys looked back at Shauna with a newfound perspective. The relationship with her fundamentally changed forever. Raven mentions he wanted to visit sooner but was occupied with royal duties despite his young age. Shanna asks Raven why he is laughing, and he reveals that he finds the twins highly amusing.
Shanna is relieved to learn Raven wasn't laughing at her, her expression softening as she speaks to him.
Raven asks if she was upset thinking he was mocking her, and Shanna admits it bothered her slightly. Raven looks away with a serious expression, preparing to offer some advice regarding her future healing plans. Raven claims Shauna belongs to him while she reacts with a mix of realization and exasperated frustration. Raven advises Shauna to learn magic for her hospital, but she reveals that she cannot use magic. Raven looks at Shanna in utter shock, unable to believe that her healing power isn't a form of magic.
Shanna explains her mother's claim that her power isn't magical, questioning why Raven didn't already know this.
Raven admits he just assumed she was naturally gifted with magic, feeling surprised by the new information.
Raven falls into a thoughtful silence, processing the implications of Shauna's unique and mysterious healing ability.
Raven offers Shauna a confident and charming smile, seemingly unbothered by her lack of traditional magical talent. Raven calls himself Shayna's savior and first friend, asking to be treated as a special exception. Shanna questions their friendship due to her age, while Raven suggests making her his sister. Raven asks if anyone nearby is sick, and the blonde girl confirms there is. Raven asks why priests or mages haven't helped, but Shauna explains no one could cure them.
Shanna worries about her own limits and fears Raven will be disappointed if she fails. Raven suggests treating this as a light rehearsal, prompting Shauna to seek her parents' permission.
Raven considers their permission the main obstacle, but asks if she is willing to try. Raven offers a bright, genuine smile that radiates a sense of warmth and boyish charm. Shanna quietly observes that Raven's smile makes him look much more like a regular child. Shanna decides she wants to help because she can't stand seeing Raven feel so dour.
Shanna reflects on how Raven is truly her savior and feels compelled to return the favor.
Raven suggests they visit the Duke and Duchess immediately, catching the young girl off guard. Raven and Shanna approach the girl's parents to discuss the plan regarding the sick person. Shanna realizes the sick person might be a mutual acquaintance after seeing her parents' hesitation.
Shanna's determination grows as she realizes she cannot simply stand by and do nothing.
Shanna steps forward and tells her parents that she wants to go through with it. Shanna pleads with her mother, begging for the chance to try helping the sick individual.
The blonde mother remains firm, stating her clear opposition to Shauna's involvement in the matter.
The mother stands her ground, her ornate floral dress shimmering as she maintains her stance.
The mother explains that she cannot permit anything that might place Shauna in any danger. Shanna insists she is fine, but her mother warns her about the hidden toll on her body.
The mother reminds Shauna that every encounter with outsiders has previously resulted in her getting injured.
Shanna dejectedly mentions her desire to use her unique power to help those who are suffering. Raven intervenes, informing the parents that Shanna has expressed a desire to establish her own hospital.
Raven explains that Shayna's future dream is to heal the sick using her own special abilities.
The mother is deeply moved by Shauna's kindness, her eyes welling up with sudden emotional warmth. Shauna reaches out to her mother as the tension in the room melts into parental affection. Shauna excitedly promises to earn money and buy her parents delicious things when she is older. Overcome with love, the mother hugs Shauna and declares she would do anything for her daughter.
Kyle pats Shauna's head, enthusiastically agreeing that their daughter should pursue whatever she desires most.
The mother relents, acknowledging that they cannot keep Shauna isolated in the mansion forever. Kyle adds the condition that Shauna's ability to heal beast folk must remain a strictly guarded secret.
The mother vows to protect Shauna from the temple even if they declare her a saintess.
Kyle kisses Shauna's head, warmly encouraging her to do whatever she wants with their full support. Shanna suddenly remembers just how extreme and overprotective her parents can be regarding her safety. Shanna stands with her back turned, the narrative highlighting the family's high social and noble standing. The scene transitions to the group walking through a grand sunlit hallway inside the Imperial Palace. Shanna feels a wave of nervous anticipation as she enters the palace for the first time.
Kyle asks Shanna if she is nervous, and the young girl admits she is feeling uneasy.
Raven reassures Shauna, pointing out that she is merely visiting the home of a close friend.
Raven maintains a calm and confident expression as they move closer to their destination.
Raven tells Shauna to focus on him instead of worrying about people who don't matter.
Kyle teases Raven for wanting attention, but insists that Shanna loves her father the most.
The mother argues for Shauna's affection while the girl becomes flustered by her parents' petty bickering.
Raven halts before a pair of grand doors and announces that they have finally arrived.
Kyle and Shauna stand before the massive, ornate entrance as the doors slowly begin to open.
Shayna peeks inside the room with a look of mixed curiosity and intense, wide-eyed apprehension. Raven calls out to the occupant of the room, announcing his presence to the reigning monarch.
Shanna lets out a loud, shocked exclamation as she is completely blindsided by a sudden revelation.
Shanna is mortified to realize the rehearsal Raven mentioned involves healing the actual Empress. A quiet, regal atmosphere fills the chamber as the group gathers around the Empress.
Raven describes the Empress's sudden collapse and the failure of all previous medical attempts.
Shayna approaches the unconscious blonde woman, sensing the weight of the task ahead.
Standing by the bedside, Shanna and Raven share a moment of tense preparation.
Shanna vows to save the Empress, asking the young prince to believe in her. Raven watches the young girl with a mixture of hope and silent admiration.
Raven smiles as he questions if she truly has the power to achieve such a miracle.
Raven offers an out, but Shinna's resolve remains unshakable despite his attempts to lower the pressure.
Shanna begins the procedure, reassuring Raven that she can handle the burden. She gently takes the Empress's hand, establishing a connection for her healing power. Radiant golden light erupts from the girl, illuminating the dark corners of the room.
Shanna feels a massive surge of energy leaving her, struggling against the intense strain.
Raven looks on with concern as Shauna pushes herself to her absolute limits.
Shanna realizes Raven only called this a rehearsal to save her from paralyzing fear.
Spurred by this realization, she focuses her power, refusing to let the effort fail.
The golden energy intensifies, swirling around the room in a dazzling display of power.
Shanna continues to channel her strength, refusing to break the connection with the patient.
Exhausted, Shanna nearly collapses as the light fades, but Raven is there to catch her. A final shimmer of light remains on Shauna's hand as she completes the heal.
Kyle rushes over and lifts his daughter, terrified that she has overexerted herself.
Shanna smiles weakly, insisting she is fine while her father consults with Anais.
Her parents embrace her tightly, their overprotective nature showing through their relief and worry.
Shanna basks in the warmth of her family's affection after the grueling ordeal.
The doctor requests a moment to assess the results of the girl's work.
Silence falls as the black-haired man carefully checks the Empress's vitals and pulse.
The doctor exclaims in shock as he discovers the Empress has been completely cured.
Shanna is internally thrilled, realizing her healing abilities are even more potent than she imagined. Raven expresses his gratitude to the Duke and Duchess for their loyalty and assistance.
The Empress rests peacefully, her complexion returned to a healthy, natural glow.
Looking down at the sleeping woman, Shauna feels a deep sense of satisfaction.
Shayna informs the prince that the Empress is healthy and no longer requires treatment.
Raven suggests opening the clinic immediately, promising the full support of the Imperial Crown. Shayna is caught off guard by the suggestion to start her business right where.
The Empress appears rejuvenated, her recovery a testament to the young girl's unique gift.
Elsewhere, a frustrated man meets with a cloaked figure in a dim, secret location.
The man slams the table in rage, unable to believe the Empress survived the curse.
The cloaked mage is equally baffled, insisting the lethal spell was impossible to break.
The conspirator realizes Raven's path to the throne is now secured, much to his fury. Panic and anger fill the room as their long-planned assassination attempt ends in failure.
The man refuses to pay and storms out, insulting the mage's supposedly legendary reputation.
Left alone, the cloaked figure wonders what unknown force could have countered their magic. A sinister, fanged smile appears in the darkness, hinting at an even greater mystery.
The scene shifts to a rustic tavern filled with quiet shadows and shelves of bottles.
A man with long silver hair sits at the counter while another cleans the floor.
The silver-haired man asks Renate about Evelyn, learning she stayed to repay the healer.
Renee expresses disbelief at the news that a beastman was successfully treated by a human. Hope flares as they consider if this healer could save their plague-stricken people. The silver-haired man puts down his wooden mug with a deliberate, heavy thud. He gets up to leave, acknowledging that the news of such a miracle is naturally shocking. The silver-haired man dismisses his talkative companion, telling Ron to get lost immediately. A grand palace stands illuminated under the brilliant glow of the full moon. Raven stands alone on the palace balcony, lost in thought under the moonlight. The young prince looks down at his hand, reflecting on a profound inner mystery.
Raven recalls a past tragedy, remembering how the previous empress died while giving birth.
He reflects on how the emperor's remarriage made the current empress his official stepmother. Targeted by constant assassins, the prince sought a strong ally in the wolf beast folk. After finding the abandoned baby, Raven instinctively decided to claim the infant as his. Raven remembers how his first glance at Shauna revealed their shared and unique nature. While society viewed them as scary or disgusting, he recognized her as his own kind. A radiant light envelops Shauna, capturing the prince's attention as he watches her. Raven reaches out toward the brilliant glow, drawn to the girl's immense power. Returning to the present, the prince stares at his palm, remembering her healing warmth. Inside the royal bedchamber, the empress recovers while speaking with the duke and duchess.
The empress expresses her deep gratitude, admitting she would have died without their daughter.
The Duchess questions her lack of caution, but the monarch blames a demon's curse.
Kyle and his wife are stunned to hear that Shayna successfully broke a demonic curse.
The parents swell with immense pride as they discuss Shauna's incredible and diverse talents.
Wearing a gentle smile, the Empress begins a suggestion regarding the young girl's future. The monarch playfully suggests that Shayna should eventually become a bride for her son, Raven. The parents reject the proposal, but the Empress insists the idea is actually quite serious.
The Duchess argues about fate, claiming the Wentworth lineage is perfect for a future Empress.
Duke Kyle interrupts the conversation, addressing the sovereign with a look of firm resolve.
Kyle declares that they will never force Shauna into any path she does not choose.
The Empress mentions societal expectations, but the Duke insists that freedom is always possible.
Noticing his absolute seriousness, the Empress admits she cannot treat his refusal as a joke.
A heavy silence fills the ornate room as the high-ranking nobles maintain their stance.
The Empress praises her son's upbringing, noting he would be a loyal friend to Sean.
Shayna smiles brightly among flowers as the Duke insists her future remains entirely her own. The monarch is surprised, but the Duchess warns that countless marriage proposals will eventually arrive. Kyle identifies the temple and the source of the curse as the main future obstacles. They discuss concealing Shayna's involvement, realizing they must make her status unassailable to every outsider. The Duchess is determined to find the curse's source and destroy it before they act. Kyle demands Raven become crown prince, surprising the Empress with his sudden, fierce political ambition. The Duke's motivation is for Raven to protect Shauna as a powerful and high-ranking friend. The Empress realizes the couple openly intends to use her son for their daughter's benefit. She concludes that having the powerful Wentworth family on their side is a major advantage.
The sky clears as the group agrees to let the children start as friends.
Sunlight bathes the palace grounds as a new chapter in the young girl's life begins. A small, dainty shoe steps forward, signaling a shift in the narrative's timeline. Now 9 years old, Shauna Perry Wentworth stands dressed in an elegant floral patterned gown. Shauna sighs heavily at her desk, burdened by the weight of her many royal lessons. The young girl complains about having to study from the early hours of the morning. Shayna screams in frustration, declaring the amount of studying she must do to be unfair. The Empress reminds Shauna that building a hospital requires a solid foundation of academic knowledge.
The monarch suggests tutoring with Raven, ignoring Shauna's protest to secure a royal teacher.
The Empress promises to officially sponsor Shanna's hospital if she completes her rigorous studies.
With a cheerful wave, the monarch encourages the young girl to work hard at school. Shanna feels betrayed by the Empress's kindness, slumping over her books in deep despair. Pouting at her desk, Shayna blames Raven for the overwhelming workload she now faces.
Raven approaches the blonde girl at her desk, asking if she's still complaining.
Standing tall at 14, the blonde prince presents a much more mature appearance.
Raven reassures her that it will end soon, leaving the girl feeling quite confused.
Shanna excitedly realizes his academy entrance means her exhausting daily tutoring sessions finally end.
The prince looks slightly dejected, noticing how happy she is to see him go. Shayna explains that their constant daily study sessions have become a bit too frequent.
Raven acts wounded, but Shayna quickly backtracks, promising she will truly miss his company.
Raven questions if she will miss him, as she admits he isn't her only friend.
The pair sits together at a large wooden table within a vast ornate library.
The blonde prince leans in slightly, softly calling out to the young girl. He asks if she will miss him if he goes away for a long time.
Shauna is puzzled, questioning if he won't be returning home during his school vacations.
The prince looks down, admitting that it is likely he won't be coming back.
A man in a dark suit interrupts the library's quiet, seeking the prince's immediate attention.
The brown-haired aide informs Raven that the Emperor has issued an urgent summons dram.
Raven sighs, annoyed by the task, as the aide mentions the Duke's meeting with royalty. Predicting another conflict, Raven declines Shana's offer to accompany him to see his father. He tells her to go home, apologizing for being unable to stay with her.
Shauna tells him to take care, and the prince acknowledges her concern before leaving.
The girl remains at the table, watching the prince depart through the library's exit.
Shayna reflects on how much busier the prince has become since attaining his new table.
His earlier question about being missed echoes in her mind against a bright, shimmering background. Shayna playfully concludes that despite his mature act, the prince is still just a kid. Deciding there is still time before he leaves, she prepares to leave the library. Holding a large book, Shauna walks happily through the halls of the Grand Imperial Palace. Shayna joyfully hugs a woman in a maid's uniform, calling out the name Bailey. Bailey notes her early arrival while Shayna asks for the location of the young twins. Bailey directs her to the training grounds where Maria is currently sparring with the boys.
Shayna calls for Evelyn to follow her as she heads toward the outdoor practice area.
A young beastman girl with long dark hair and animal ears runs eagerly toward her.
Bailey questions Evelyn's departure, but the girl insists Shauna's orders always take top priority.
The beastman girl smiles brightly, happy to follow her friend's lead to the grounds.
Bailey watches them leave with a sigh, noting how remarkably similar the two girls are.
From above, Maria is seen training with two red-haired boys in the center circle. One of the red-haired boys lunges forward with a wooden sword, letting out a yell.
Maria effortlessly parries the young boy's aggressive attack during their intense practice session.
With a swift motion, the woman disarms the boy, sending his wooden weapon flying away.
The red-haired boy falls flat on the stone floor after losing the brief sparring match. Panting heavily, the young boy stares up, completely exhausted by the rigorous physical training.
Shanna arrives at the training grounds, looking on with a surprised and curious expression. The other red-haired boy spots her arrival and offers a casual greeting to the girl.
Shayna mentions finishing early and asks if they are finished, but Leon objects to the phrasing.
The boy on the ground expresses frustration at being seen in such a pathetic state. He laments showing her another failure, but Shauna remains quite unimpressed by his display. Shayna bluntly remarks that his behavior is nothing new and Leon is always pathetic. Maria jokes about making Leon cry, but Shanna notes he is a brave 13-year-old. As his brother offers a towel, Leon wonders why Shayna returned at this specific moment. The standing twin mentions the newspaper and predicts Raven's busy schedule would allow Shayna's escape. A background of round birds accompanies the realization that Shayna would definitely ditch her lessons.
Maria asks about physical training, but Shauna declares a holiday because she is exhausted.
Ian points out Shayna's habit of resting, prompting her to ask about her life's motto. Ian accurately recites Shauna's motto as being healthy, lazy, and comfortable with a knowing smile.
Shanna feels a surge of pride because her friend understands her personality so perfectly.
Leon affectionately pats Shauna's head as the red-haired twins loom over the surprised young girl.
Shayna reflects on how the brothers have recently begun treating her like their own younger sister.
The blonde girl ponders the odd discrepancy between her internal maturity and her actual physical age. Ian informs Shauna that a devastating epidemic is currently spreading throughout the capital's impoverished slum district.
Shanna reacts with sheer disbelief and horror upon hearing the news of the widespread disease outbreak.
Medical experts struggle in a quarantine facility as the plague resists all forms of magical healing.
Ian explains that affordable medicine is scarce and no effective cure has been discovered yet. A vision of the blonde prince appears as Ian mentions how busy Raven will become. Shanna worries that Raven's impulsive nature might lead him to take dangerous risks despite his age. The sun shines brightly over the sprawling and majestic architecture of the Imperial Palace grounds. A maid interrupts Shauna to report today's lessons are canceled, causing the young girl great confusion.
The brown-haired maid explains that the prince has personally traveled to the slums to fight the epidemic.
Furious at the prince's recklessness, Shauna questions whether Raven has completely lost his mental faculties.
A single candle flickers on an ornate stand, casting a soft glow in the dim room. Ella notices Shauna's unusual silence, while the girl maintains she is simply being a good child.
Shanna insists on her good behavior, earning a gentle and tired smile from her green-haired maid.
Ella gives Shauna a goodnight kiss on the cheek before the two exchange sleepy evening farewells.
Once the maid departs, Shayna peeks out from under the covers with a determined, wide-eyed look.
Shanna sits upright in her large bed, mentally preparing herself to focus on the task ahead. The young girl uses her powers to manipulate a glowing piece of clay, thinning its consistency. Outside the bedroom door, Ella lets out a massive yawn as she begins to feel exhausted. The green-haired maid struggles to keep her eyes open while standing guard in the silent hallway. Overcome by sudden fatigue, Ella slumps against the door and falls into a deep, peaceful sleep.
The door handle clicks and turns as someone carefully opens it from inside the darkened room.
Shauna cautiously steps into the hallway and confirms that her maid has indeed fallen fast asleep. Shayna signals for Evelyn to emerge from hiding so they can begin their secret nighttime mission.
The two girls tiptoe past several sleeping servants as they make their way through the palace. Shanna regrets her lack of magic and physical strength, forcing her to rely on troublesome sleeping agents.
Evelyn is impressed by the successful mass tranquilization, though Shayna insists it was a simple trick.
The pair runs down the carpeted hallway, eager to escape the palace before anyone else wakes.
The crescent moon hangs high over the palace towers as the girls successfully reach the exterior. Catching her breath, Shauna remarks on the palace's size while Evelyn offers a much faster ride. A sudden cloud of white smoke erupts beside Shauna as her friend begins a physical transformation.
A massive clawed black paw lands firmly on the stone floor amidst the lingering magical mist.
Evelyn transforms into a giant black dog, leaving the young blonde girl staring in absolute awe. Shanna joyfully embraces the giant canine, declaring how incredibly cool her fluffy best friend looks right now. The young girl climbs onto the back of the large dog to begin their journey together. Shauna rides the transformed Evelyn through the night air, heading toward their destination with a smile. A promotional banner features several other popular series currently available for readers on the website. The scene shifts to a deserted and quiet market street located within the city's slum district.
A fist slams down on a table as Shanna demands to know if Raven is crazy.
Raven looks up from his research, completely baffled by Shanna's sudden appearance and her aggressive questioning. Shayna scolds the prince for visiting a plague zone, but Raven reminds her she's only 9. Shayna continues her lecture, arguing that experts should be handling the crisis instead of a child.
Raven calmly questions whether she expects him to rely on the unreliable priests or palace magicians. The prince slams his book shut, noting the fatal delays involved in selecting and mobilizing official support.
Raven criticizes the selfish nature of the nobles who would never risk themselves for the poor.
The blonde girl questions why the prince came personally when he lacks any healing magic.
The prince explains his presence forces the religious temples and nobles to provide necessary assistance.
He adds that if he falls ill, the pharmacists will desperately work to find a cure.
The blonde prince leans forward and asks if there is a faster way to resolve this.
The scene depicts a bleak slum as Raven reflects on his father's lack of true concern.
A hand rests over a dark stain while Raven notes the annual futility of using magic.
Raven admits he was assigned this hopeless task by Duke Algren to ensure his inevitable failure. The prince explains he wants to finish this work quickly to resume his studies with Shauna.
Shauna is stunned, realizing the prince risked his life just to keep their study schedule together. Raven mentions that if the medicine works, the nobles will take all the credit for themselves.
Shanna is horrified when the prince suggests the victims will simply be burned if treatments fail.
A close-up of the prince's eyes reveals a cold, calculating resolve regarding the dire situation.
Shaina vehemently protests the burning of victims and declares she will treat all of them herself. The blonde prince remains skeptical, arguing that it is impossible for anyone to save everyone. A brown-haired man and a blonde woman suddenly appear, addressing Shauna in the dimly lit room.
Shauna gasps in surprise, realizing her mother and father have discovered her secret nighttime excursion.
The brown-haired man asks if Shauna has anything she wants to say to them. Shanna bows in apology, but her blonde mother asks why the young girl is feeling sorry.
Shaina admits to running away, but her mother clarifies that the disappearance is not the issue.
A silent, tender moment passes as Shauna's parents look upon their daughter with deep concern. The blonde woman tells Shauna that hiding her intentions from her parents was her only mistake. The young girl's eyes widen with realization as she listens to her mother's supportive words.
Her mother notes that Shanna should have informed them if she wished to visit the prince. Shayna's father pats her head, admitting he knew his daughter would never be able to stay quiet.
Shayna's mother asks if she truly wants to save the infected, and Shanna confidently confirms.
The blonde woman questions how a young girl intends to treat so many people alone.
Shayna explains that focusing on improving the hygiene of poor districts is the first crucial step.
She plans to raise donations for food and thorough cleaning before she begins her healing work.
Shanna suggests attributing the healing to her mother's magic to hide the true source of power.
Her mother questions Shayna's mage ranking, but Shayna believes others will view it as a miracle.
Raven turns away, deciding to manage the logistical details of Shayna's plan on his own.
The blonde prince smiles brightly, radiating a newfound sense of purpose and confidence in the mission. Sunlight bathes the town's buildings, signaling a fresh start for the district under their care. Maids work diligently to clean the facility, preparing a safe environment for the sick residents.
A maid watches over a sleeping woman, wondering about the mysterious benefactor who arrived to help.
Shayna stands before a patient in a bed, her presence surprising the weary, sick woman. The sick woman looks up with exhausted eyes, weakly calling out the young girl's name. Reassuring the patient, Shayna begins her treatment and promises that she will feel better very soon. A golden light emanates from Shayna's hands as she transfers her powerful healing energy to the woman.
The woman sits up in astonishment, delighted that she can finally breathe without any pain. Looking at her hands in disbelief, the woman realizes her body has been completely restored.
Shayna smiles warmly, satisfied with the success of her healing powers and the woman's recovery.
The woman protests that a child shouldn't be here, but Shauna kindly tells her it is okay.
Shayna tells the patient to rest while the remaining golden magic continues to stabilize her condition.
The young girl promises to continue healing the other victims while the woman gets some sleep.
Several maids attend to patients in the clean ward, showing the progress of the rescue mission.
A young boy thanks the little lady, but Shanna modestly insists her contribution was very small.
Narrations note that many people are recovering thanks to Shauna's selfless actions and miraculous healing.
From the doorway, the blonde prince watches Shauna work, moved by her dedication to the people. Shanna is depicted with angelic wings as the story highlights her heroic actions as Lady Wentworth.
Narrations describe how Shayna's kindness and gentle words seem to create genuine miracles for the patients. Raven stares into the distance, worrying that the spreading rumors might eventually cause Shauna more harm.
Shanna stands alone in the dark alleyway, leaning against a cold stone wall as exhaustion takes hold.
The young girl yawns and decides she should head home to rest before a voice calls her name.
Shanna turns around quickly, questioning who is there as she scans the shadows of the silent dark alley.
The blonde girl wonders if the person approaching is the same sick patient she helped earlier that evening.
Shanna hears her name whispered again, her expression turning wary as she searches the deserted, moonlit city street. Shanna sees a clawed shadow on the wall as a man throws a cloth over her head. A man carries a large sack over his shoulder as he runs through the empty city streets. Trapped inside the sack, Shayna realizes she has been kidnapped and begins to feel extremely motion sick. The kidnapper finally stops running, his dark boots coming to a halt on the cold, textured stone ground.
Shanna remains huddled in fear as the fabric of the sack is carefully pulled away from her. Shauna's eyes snap open as she looks up at her captor in total disbelief.
The young girl is stunned to find herself facing a tall beastman with gray hair and animal ears.
The scene shifts to the interior of the palace where Raven and the Duke are having a meeting.
A guard rushes into the room to report Shanna's disappearance, prompting a shocked and furious reaction from both men.
Raven yells at the guard, demanding to know why he failed to protect the girl during his shift.
The Duke orders an immediate search while learning that his wife has already gone to the site of the disappearance.
Preparing to leave, the prince vows to follow immediately and find the missing girl before anything happens. Raven concludes that the rumors spreading throughout the capital must be the reason someone targeted Shauna for abduction. The prince regrets not sending the girl home sooner while rushing out to begin his search and rescue mission.
Groups of soldiers run through the dimly lit streets to begin their frantic search for the kidnapped girl.
Horses stand ready as Raven realizes his enemies likely saw this moment as their best chance to strike. Mounting his horse, the prince blames himself for his lack of caution and for not assigning enough guards.
Raven rides through the night, desperately praying for Shauna to remain safe until he can reach her side.
Soldiers and the Duke gather around Shanna in a quiet town square after her successful and safe recovery.
Raven arrives at the scene, hurriedly dismounting his horse to confirm that the young girl is truly unharmed. The prince calls out Shauna's name as he approaches the group with a panicked and desperate expression.
Raven is visibly out of breath, his face flushed and sweating from the intensity of his frantic ride.
The prince asks if she is injured, and Shauna reassures him that she is perfectly fine and safe.
Raven demands an explanation for the night's events, but Shauna vaguely summarizes the ordeal while he asks about the captors.
The blonde girl hesitates to provide specific details about the kidnappers as the prince continues his aggressive questioning.
The Duke steps in with a smile, claiming that the kidnappers simply managed to evade the royal guards.
Raven finds the story absurd, questioning how they escaped despite the mobilization of the elite royal guards.
The Duke notes his daughter's mercy while Raven scolds Shauna for making everyone worry and laughing about it.
Raven sighs in frustration, noting that the entire Wentworth family is testing his patience throughout this stressful day.
The prince asks about the Duchess's whereabouts, and the Duke claims she collapsed from the shock of the event.
Shayna pulls on the prince's sleeve, reminding him that there are still many sick patients left to treat.
Raven tells her there are no critical cases left and insists she leave with her father before exhausting herself. The Duke suggests they head home, dismissing Shayna's earlier reckless behavior as just a typical teenage phase.
Shauna looks back toward the facility, her expression reflecting a mix of guilt and lingering concern. The blonde prince thinks about how much Shayna worried for him and decides to write her a letter later.
The scene shifts to the exterior of the grand mansion as the moon hangs high over the towers.
Shayna collapses face down onto her large, comfortable bed, completely exhausted by the day's dramatic and dangerous events.
The girl relishes being home, deciding that going out only leads to trouble and unnecessary life-threatening danger.
Shayna sits up quickly as her mother calls from outside the door, asking if she and the Duke may enter.
A close-up depicts the hem of a dark dress as the girl's parents finally step into the room. The Duke and Duchess stand before their daughter, stating that they need to have a very serious conversation.
The blonde girl looks up with a wide-eyed, slightly apprehensive expression and agrees.
Sitting together, the Duke notes that building a hospital is easy but questions the location, while the Duchess suggests a safer neighborhood.
The brown-haired man explains that professional healers and mages would likely refuse to work in such a dangerous district.
Shanna realizes her parents only agreed so easily because they never expected her to personally manage the facility.
Shayna considers that since beastmen can now be infected, her parents will surely ensure the medicine reaches them too. Pretending to be overcome with grief, Shauna claims she cannot ignore the suffering children she witnessed during her excursion. The blonde woman looks skeptical, questioning if her 9-year-old daughter is truly trying to act as a hero. Shanna explains that she simply wants to do whatever she can to help as many people as possible. The Duke finally relents with a weary sigh, agreeing to support her ambitious plan for the hospital. The Duke sets conditions, demanding she attend all lessons diligently until the prince enrolls at the academy. Pointing toward a collection of jewelry, the man insists she must wear every protective charm they provide.
Depicted as a small chibi, Shauna enthusiastically agrees to all of her father's protective and academic requirements.
The Duchess emphasizes the most important rule, stating that Shayna must never reveal her true identity to anyone.
The Duke warns that the world is full of petty, envious people, and there is no need to make herself a target.
He explains that keeping her treatment of beastmen a secret is vital due to complicated political matters involving the temple. The Wentworth family shares a brief, warm moment of unity as they finalize their secret agreement.
Shayna gives a firm nod of her head, indicating her full understanding of her parents' strict rules.
With a bright and cheerful smile, the blonde girl promises to keep every one of their warnings in mind.
Shauna rides on the shoulders of the gray-haired beastman while walking through the town with a blonde maid.
Shanna playfully orders Ron to move faster while the beastman asks her to keep her feet still.
The maid scolds Ron for his bluntness, suggesting he should be grateful she didn't put a collar on him.
Shanna pities Ron's plight, while he silently vows to never be hostile to her family as long as he lives.
A comedic flashback shows Ron trembling as the Duke threatens him and the Duchess prepares a powerful magic spell.
Narrations explain that Ron was recruited after an intense talk with her parents, though Shauna suspects there was more to it.
Shanna asks if Ron has the district under his thumb, and he humbly clarifies that his influence is quite limited.
Ron notes there are many empty buildings in Lirum, offering to quickly remove any vagrants currently occupying them.
Shayna refuses to evict anyone, and Ron clarifies that the squatters only use the buildings for temporary shelter. The gray-haired man explains that the homeless people simply sneak in occasionally to get a roof over their heads. Ron lifts Shayna off his shoulders as they arrive at the first potential site for the new medical facility.
Standing at the entrance to the old Lirum district, Shanna looks around the worn but bustling city street.
The young girl rushes eagerly toward the tunnel leading deeper into the district to continue their site inspection. Ron stares after the blonde girl, admitting that she is remarkably fearless for such a young and small child. The maid doubts they will find a suitable building, but Shauna suggests simply constructing a new one with extra workers.
Ron points out a large 3-story building, though a close-up reveals the structure is heavily covered in cobwebs.
Shayna notes the building is very old, prompting Ron to defensively remind her she claimed not to care about the condition.
Ron nervously adds that the building is near his shop and the security is decent despite being frequented by beastmen.
With a joyful and determined expression, Shanna decides that this building will be the home for her new hospital. Shanna surprises Ron by suggesting she use his shop to treat patients while the construction on the building is underway.
When Shauna asks if he dislikes the idea, Ron reluctantly tells her she can do whatever she wants.
The scene shifts to Shauna and Ron sitting at a table together in the shade of a wooden balcony. Ron holds his head in his hands, wondering how on earth he is supposed to face someone named Renate. Ron worries that Renate will try to kill him for kidnapping Shauna and bringing her to work at the shop.
Shanna sits quietly, thinking that she isn't really working, but rather occupying Ron's workplace for her own mission. The young girl looks surprised as Ron mentions that Renate specifically ordered him not to touch her.
A memory depicts beastmen children huddled together in grief, highlighting the tragic losses the district has suffered.
Shanna bluntly tells Ron to beg Renate for mercy, leaving the beastman complaining about her lack of protection. As Ron collapses face down in despair, Shayna wonders if such a young leader is truly the alpha of the wolves. A sudden motion near the table suggests the arrival of someone else in the quiet shop area.
A black-haired girl with animal ears bursts through the door to greet Lady Shauna with a wide wave.
Evelyn asks if Ron bothered Shauna while she was away, but the blonde girl tells her to leave him alone.
Shayna dismisses Ron's involvement, thinking that Sir Bailey was the one who actually did the hard work.
Ron defends his contribution, asserting that he was the one who negotiated the deal with Renate.
Evelyn rebuffs Ron, claiming she only remembers being saved by Renate and Shauna and owes him nothing.
Shanna asks about the children's welfare, and Evelyn happily confirms they are all perfectly healthy after Shanna's treatment.
Evelyn reports that word is spreading to other smaller packs, though no other infected beastmen have been found.
Evelyn assures Shauna that the interconnected nature of the tribes will ensure news of the cure spreads quickly.
The black-haired girl bows her head in a silent gesture of profound gratitude toward her young savior.
Shanna worries about Evelyn's dependency, hoping her friend will eventually find the strength to become truly independent. Finding the girl irresistible, Shauna praises Evelyn's capabilities while affectionately patting the beastman girl on her head.
Evelyn begs to stay by Shanna's side, fearing the blonde girl might disappear again like she did previously. Shanna offers a comforting hug, promising to honor Evelyn's wish to remain together and avoid dangerous solo missions.
Shanna asks Ron if there is a blacksmith nearby, catching the gray-haired man off guard with the request.
Shanna explains her desire to manufacture a specific item, questioning Ron's surprised reaction to her sudden interest.
Sighing, Ron agrees to lead Shauna to the skilled artisan responsible for forging the weapons for their group. Ron warns Shauna to behave herself as they approach the workshop, while she indignantly questions his low expectations. The interior of the old building is derelict, filled with thick layers of dust and massive hanging cobwebs.
In a grim flashback, a silver-haired boy begs a sickly blonde girl named Lily to stay with him.
The pale girl weakly insists she is fine despite her obvious suffering and the severity of her illness.
The boy suggests seeking help from the human healer who saved the Grey Wolf tribe, hoping for a cure.
Lily reacts with vitriol, cursing her own weakness and questioning the boy's misplaced faith in the human race. A close-up of the girl's eye reveals her intense, burning hatred and her desire to destroy all humans.
The silver-haired boy warns of her impending death, but the stubborn girl declares she would rather die than help.
Lily demands the boy leave her alone, claiming that humans are far more repulsive to her than any disease.
The boy warns that death is certain, but Lily tells him to leave before he contracts the infection.
The silver-haired child stands in somber silence as he processes the dying girl's rejection of help and humans.
The boy turns and walks away, leaving Lily huddled on the floor of the dimly lit room alone.
Lying on the cold floor, Lily cries and whispers her deep-seated resentment toward the humans who failed her.
Shayna plays joyfully in the garden as a white wolf pup leaps excitedly through the blooming flower petals.
A man watches the scene with a nostalgic smile, moved by the sight of the children playing together. A mature man with black hair and a distinctive scar on his cheek looks on with a solemn expression. The scarred man turns his gaze away, his face reflecting a mix of complex emotions and lingering past burdens.
As he writes a letter, the narration notes that Leon has grown significantly since their last meeting long ago.
The man sits at his desk as thoughts emphasize that Leon remains the inevitable heir to the Grey Wolf clan.
Shanna scrubs the wolf pup in a tub, noting that his once white fur has begun turning a grayish color.
Deciding it is the perfect time for a bath, the blonde girl continues to lather the wolf with soap.
The wolf pup sits patiently in the tub, completely covered in thick white bubbles from Shayna's enthusiastic cleaning.
Shayna pours a container of water over the pup's head to rinse away the soap as he watches her.
After the rinse, Shayna is confused to see that Leon's fur remains gray despite the thorough cleaning they performed.
Shanna ponders if the pup's growth is responsible for the color change, recalling that wolf fur shifts with age.
Exhausted from the bath, the young wolf pup curls up and falls into a deep sleep on the floor.
Shauna watches him sleep, fondly thinking that despite his growth and new title, he is still just a baby.
The young girl gently slides a soft cushion under the sleeping pup's head to ensure he rests comfortably tonight. Leon mumbles about a missing ring in his sleep, prompting Shayna to decide she must retrieve it for him. Shanna recalls a dark, monstrous presence in the outer castle village, contemplating the danger she must eventually face there.
Haunted by visions of suffering, Shauna resolves to return to the village once the winter weather begins to warm.
The girl decides to spend the night sleeping near the pup, finding comfort in their shared presence and safety. The white wolf pup thinks about how much he loves Shasha while jumping around in a dream of bubbles. Leon cherishes the cushion Shayna gave him, proud that he can finally read the loving message she wrote there. The pup licks the cushion, deeply moved by the words of affection Shayna inscribed specifically for his personal comfort.
Leon fondly remembers Shauna's gentle touch during his bath, realizing how much he truly treasures her kindness and care.
The white wolf pup recalls his old nanny using harsh monster shampoo to make him human.
The pup thinks about his love for Shasha and his contentment with remaining a wolf forever. The white wolf pup identifies himself as Callion Grey Wolf while resting his head on a pillow.
Glowing lights surround the white wolf pup as he rests peacefully on his soft blue cushion. Noticing Shauna sleeping beside him, the white wolf pup observes her presence with a gentle expression.
Callion jumps onto the bed to comfort Shauna as she calls for Leon in her sleep.
The white wolf pup watches the sleeping blonde girl with a look of deep, empathetic concern.
Shanna sobs in her sleep, pleading to protect Leon and wondering where he has gone.
Callion licks Shauna's tears, telling her not to cry because her sadness makes him sad too.
Confused, Callion wonders about the identity of Shauna mentioned in her troubled dream.
Shanna holds the white wolf pup's paw while crying during her heavy and restless sleep.
The white wolf pup wonders who Shauna could be referring to as her sister in her dreams.
The blacksmith agrees to the strange order, promising to have the items manufactured right away.
Shanna gazes at the blacksmith while asking about the required payment for her custom order. The blacksmith refuses payment, citing a debt to the Grey Wolf tribe and their human benefactor. Evelyn insists that the blacksmith accept a fair payment to ensure a clean and professional deal.
Evelyn worries about future leverage while Shauna apologizes for her friend's blunt and protective nature.
The blacksmith admires Shanna's ability to earn the canine tribe's loyalty without using slave collars.
Shanna glares, asserting their friendship and warning the artisan against ever repeating such a comment. The blacksmith clears his throat awkwardly as he processes Shauna's firm stance on their mutual friendship. Shanna sighs, reflecting on why the intense loyalty of her friends makes her hold on to Raven.
Flashbacks depict Raven, the red-haired twins Leon and Ian, and Evelyn as Shayna's core group.
The narration notes that the group consisted of the four of them as a cohesive unit. A profile of Raven emphasizes that he was the only one who occupied a specific role. Shanna remembers that Raven truly viewed her as a friend even when he was teasing her. Shanna contemplates whether her past actions helped Raven in some meaningful way as she looks downward. Thoughts explain the political struggle between the Empress's supporters and the opposition led by Duke Algren. Shanna and Raven stand together against a bright background representing their shared bond and memories. A hand uses a decorative feather quill to write a letter, preparing for future plans. Shanna decides to focus on her personal goals while holding the quill pen and smiling softly. Shanna presents more sketches to the blacksmith and Evelyn, detailing the specific medical items she needs. The blacksmith and Evelyn criticize Shauna's poor drawing skills, leaving the young girl looking completely dejected. The sun sets behind a grand, multi-storied mansion, casting a warm orange glow over the architecture.
Shanna and Evelyn sit in a luxurious drawing room surrounded by ornate furniture and lit fireplaces.
Leon and Ian burst into the room, excitedly calling out Shanna's name as they approach her. The red-haired twins ask about the new hospital and inquire if there is a role available. Evelyn intervenes, scolding the twins for their noisy behavior and telling them to get away. Shanna explains her plan to appoint a representative to handle medical treatments in her place. The red-haired twins react with shock when Shanna announces that Maria will be her official representative. Shanna excitedly explains that Maria's involvement hides Wentworth's connection while allowing Shanna to visit freely. Shanna notes she can resume training under Maria, a prospect that clearly horrifies the two boys. Leon and Ian express their intense disappointment at the prospect of returning to Maria's rigorous training. Evelyn asks if Shauna will act as the hospital mascot, which the blonde girl quickly denies. Evelyn supports the plan, noting that Maria being the face of the hospital prevents Shauna's kidnapping. Evelyn cheers about dumping danger on Maria, while Shauna clarifies that wasn't exactly her intent. Shanna asks the twins about their academy enrollment, but they see no reason to attend school.
A memory shows the twins practicing swordplay, highlighting their existing commitment to the Wentworth Knights.
The twins argue that Maria's lessons are more productive for their goal of protecting Shauna.
Shauna insists that formal education is important and urges the twins to enroll in the academy.
The twins agree to enroll next year after Shauna offers to let them work until then.
Lady Anais and Maria sit together in a grand drawing room for a serious meeting. Maria holds a document suggesting there is no need for them to sign a new contract.
Lady Anais insists on formalizing their arrangement to ensure Maria feels completely secure in her role. Maria notes their long history together, while Anais explains that careful planning ensures long-term success.
Lady Anais offers a warm smile, expressing her deep trust while entrusting Maria with her greatest treasure.
Maria stares ahead in silence, her focused gaze reflecting the weight of the responsibility she accepted. Narration reveals Anais was a renowned Class 7 mage before the birth of her daughter, Shauna.
The history explains how Anais met her husband as an equal, despite being a Marquis daughter. A romantic memory depicts the moment her husband knelt to offer a sincere proposal of marriage. Portraits emphasize Anais's meticulous nature and the trauma following the kidnapping of her daughter by a nanny. Following the incident, Anais distanced herself from her family until the true culprit could finally be found. Lady Anais admits that Maria likely sought reassurance of their bond through the request for a contract.
Looking downcast, Anais expresses her fear that Shauna might grow to hate them for their choices.
Maria points out Anais's confidence around Shauna, though she understands the hidden worries of a parent. Maria confidently asserts that her mercenary skills remain sharp despite her time spent working at the manor.
A silhouette of Shauna stands amidst many watchful eyes, highlighting the unwanted attention from noble society.
Lady Anais explains that the political marriage rumors were necessary to protect Shauna from a demon's curse. Maria worries that if Shauna's role in breaking the curse is revealed, she will become a target. Narration explains that placing Shauna near Prince Raven was a strategic move to keep her identity safe. Maria questions the danger of the plan, but Anais insists that anyone who talks would pay dearly.
Lady Anais sighs, frustrated by the demon tribe's ability to remain hidden despite their constant search efforts.
Maria looks up in surprise as the conversation shifts toward a new lead on their enemies. Lady Anais smiles with newfound confidence, believing they finally have a chance to capture the demon tribe.
Henry presents a durable bull leather collar, explaining its superior strength compared to other materials.
Child Shanna listens as Henry explains that gold is too soft for a wolf's powerful neck.
Shayna looks shocked, realizing she mistakenly thought the most expensive material was naturally the best choice.
The young girl wonders if Henry simply understands animals better, while Leon looks on with clear skepticism.
Henry explains that the items provided to the ducal estate are the most durable and expensive available.
Henry asks the wolf pup to trust his judgment while trying to fasten the new leather collar. Leon wags his tail excitedly, clearly pleased with the feel and appearance of the new bell collar. Shayna beams with joy, telling the wolf pup that his new accessory looks absolutely perfect on him. Leon blushes with happiness, deeply moved by the praise and affection he receives from his beloved Shasha.
A dreamlike image shows the wolf pup resting peacefully with a golden ring, highlighting Shasha's meaningful influence.
Shanna gazes out with sparkling eyes, declaring that Shasha will always remain her very first priority. Leon celebrates his new necklace, while Henry dryly reminds everyone that he actually found the leather strap. Bare winter branches stretch across the sky as the group discusses their frequent trips into the town. Sitting by a cozy campfire, Henry questions Shauna's future ambitions while she cares for the wolf pup.
Shanna gently pets Leon, asking if he is looking forward to the hunting festival in the spring.
The young girl looks down at her companion with a soft smile, seeking his thoughts on the event.
Henry laughs, mocking the idea of a wolf who lacks human table manners attending a formal banquet.
A quiet transition panel captures a moment of stillness with soft, circular patterns and muted colors.
Leon's ears perk up as he senses a shift in the atmosphere or hears something approaching them.
As they walk through the town, the air is filled with the hushed whispers of judgmental onlookers.
A close-up of the wolf's ears highlights his keen hearing as he picks up on the negative rumors. Outside a tavern, cruel gossip labels the Duchess's marriage to a beastly wolf as a pitiful tragedy.
Leon looks away sadly, fearing that his presence at public events would only bring insults toward Shauna.
Shauna stops in her tracks, looking completely bewildered when Leon suddenly declares he will not attend.
Standing before a backdrop of thorns, Leon firmly repeats his refusal to go to the upcoming banquet. Lady Anais notes that people will now assume Maria was the one who broke the Empress's curse. Maria stands up indignantly, demanding to rewrite the contract now that dangerous demons are officially involved. The blonde lady presents a document, telling Maria she came prepared for her reaction.
Maria examines the paper, seemingly resigned to the task if it is only this much.
The blonde lady offers Maria a chance to refuse, warning her that it could be dangerous. Maria refuses to leave Shauna's side, citing how much the young lady has done for them.
In a flashback, Maria recalls her harsh past as a mercenary crossing lines between life and death.
Maria remembers the mercenaries' plan to leave until they encountered the adorable baby Shauna and her crib.
A dark background emphasizes the regret felt over the illness of Ale, the son of Bailey.
The mercenaries were losing hope as a healer predicted the sick child would not survive past age 5. After Shanna healed them, the former mercenaries found all their lingering pains and old scars completely vanished. Ale, the young boy who was once deathly ill, is shown healthy and smiling brightly. The memory focuses on Shauna's back as she stands bathed in light wearing a floral dress. Ella and the black-haired man stand together in their uniforms, sharing Maria's unspoken devotion. Maria reflects on her precious bond with Shauna and her strong desire to protect the young girl. Returning to the present, Maria accepts the paper, finding the potential for fun too hard to refuse. The scene shifts to two red-haired twin boys observing a large, newly constructed timber-framed building. One twin questions the quality of the construction, while the other defends the blonde maid's work. A text bubble clarifies that the involvement of mages made the short construction time a non-issue. A twin recalls his father's advice to only believe in things after seeing them with one's own eyes. The twins agree that they would be the first victims if any structural problems actually existed. The two red-haired noble boys walk down the street toward the entrance of the new hospital. Upon entering, the boys ask for Shauna, but Maria explains she is studying at the palace. One of the red-haired twins looks visibly annoyed, stating that he really dislikes the current situation. The twins bicker about wanting to study with Shauna instead of being separated by their differing skill levels. They complain about the prince taking Shauna away but look forward to seeing her at the academy. Realizing Shauna is not present, the twins decide to leave, satisfied that the hospital building looks solid. The two noble boys walk away from the building, unaware they are being watched from the shadows. A black-haired boy in a green shirt glares at the twins as they pass his hiding spot. The twins are suddenly confronted by two young thieves who demand they hand over all their belongings. A tense silence follows as the red-haired noble boys stare at the two overconfident street children. As the black-haired thief continues his threat, one of the twins delivers a powerful kick to his stomach. A loud crash echoes through the street as the noble boy effortlessly subdues the young thief. The twin asks the two kneeling thieves why they thought they could successfully rob them. The brown-haired boy begins to cry, prompting his partner to demand he keep his pride and stop. The thieves argue about whether pride or survival is more important while the noble twins look on awkwardly. The twin advises the boys to stop their criminal activities and seek legitimate work elsewhere in town. The black-haired thief defensively shouts that there is nothing in this area even worth their time to steal. The noble boy asks why they are robbing people if the crown prince provided everyone with food. The thieves defend the prince's generosity, insisting their hunger is not the reason they need the money. The twin asks if they are robbing for fun, but the black-haired boy reveals they desperately need money. The noble boy approaches the kneeling child, asking why they are so desperate for the funds. The brown-haired boy shouts that they need medicine, while his partner tries to keep him silent. Ben argues that the nobles might help, but the black-haired boy remains skeptical and untrusting of them. Ben looks down sadly, admitting that the sick individual they are trying to save is not a human. The twin correctly guesses that the sick person is a beastman, leaving Ben shocked by his intuition. The noble boy explains that the boys likely sought out the new hospital for the sick beastman's sake. Ben begs the nobles for help, promising to pay them back if they save the person who is ill. The red-haired twin asks for the patient's location and Ben offers to lead him there immediately. The black-haired thief berates Ben for revealing their secret and potentially endangering their friend, Lily. The twin asks about the sickness, and Ben explains it resembles a plague while the other boy screams. A cloaked beastman girl named Lily is shown hiding as Ben explains she avoids humans out of fear. Leon and Ian discuss the isolation of a young beastman named Lily in the village. A cloaked girl with white hair reflects on forbidden adult warnings regarding a beastman named Jake. The twins note that Lily lives in hiding and relies entirely on Jake for her care. Ian asks for Leon's opinion on their decision to intervene and help the isolated girl. Leon points out that Ian usually asks for input only after already making a firm decision. The brothers mention that they have not officially begun their official work duties for the day.
Leon and Ian stand ready to find Lily, determined to follow through on their shared plan.
The twins demand to know the hidden girl's location while standing amidst a garden of roses.
A transition panel showcases the ornate, floral-patterned interior ceiling of a room within a grand mansion.
Shanna enters her room and tells Maria that nothing unusual happened during her recent outing.
Shayna stops in her tracks, reacting with visible shock to the scene in the medical room.
A captive blonde girl is shown bound and gagged, making muffled noises as she struggles. The young patient is restrained on the floor with heavy ropes, chains, and a gag.
Evelyn explains the reason for the restraints to Shauna, who looks on with clear disapproval.
The twins justify the kidnapping by citing Shauna's previous warnings about not trusting any humans.
A twin explains that Shanna angrily scolds her companions, threatening to fire them if they mistreat another patient like this.
The captive blonde girl lies on a medical bed, still bound and gagged in complete helplessness.
A twin defends the bindings as a temporary measure required for the girl to receive treatment. Shayna prepares to begin the treatment herself, despite her frustration with the twins' aggressive methods.
Shanna stands over the patient as brilliant magical energy begins to radiate from her body.
The bound girl watches in terror as Shanat's golden magic begins to flow through the room. Shanna and Evelyn note with alarm that the speed of the magical absorption remains unnaturally high.
Golden magical energy surges into the patient's legs as Shauna watches the reaction with deep concern.
Narration confirms that the magical clay is being drawn into the girl's ankle at incredible speed.
Ropes strain against the patient's ankles as her body reacts violently to the magical influx.
Shanna cries out in shock as the magical process takes an unexpected and intense turn.
Evelyn watches the unfolding magical phenomena with a look of intense calculation and growing worry.
Evelyn warns Shauna of the danger as the patient groans in pain on the medical bed.
Evelyn urgently orders Leon and Ian to pin the girl down to prevent her from moving.
Ian lunges forward to hold the patient's upper body firmly against the white medical mattress.
Leon uses his strength to restrain the girl, ensuring she remains still for the ongoing treatment.
Shayna instructs Evelyn to hold the ankle while Evelyn tells her to trust her judgment.
A hand reveals a glowing red circular brand etched into the skin above the girl's ankle.
Shayna stares at the mark in horror, asking for an explanation of what it truly represents. Maria identifies the marking as a slave brand, much to Shauna's utter shock and disgust. A visual of a branding iron explains that such marks are used on fiercely resisting slaves.
Shanna looks down with a grim expression, processing the cruelty the young girl has endured.
Determined, Shauna focuses her magical power into her palms to erase the cursed slave marking. Brilliant light surrounds Shauna as she pushes her mana to break the magical slave contract.
The red slave brand slowly fades away under the influence of Shauna's powerful purifying energy.
Evelyn notices a change, warning Shauna that a strange residue remains on the girl's skin.
Ian struggles to keep the patient restrained, noting the girl's sudden and immense physical strength.
Shayna refuses to stop the process, declaring that she will complete the treatment herself immediately. A massive burst of golden light envelops the patient as the final brand is destroyed. Shayna stands back, catching her breath as she examines the result of the intense magical battle. A new dark flame-like symbol appears on the ankle where the red brand once resided.
Shanna and Evelyn examine the unknown symbol, noting they have never seen anything like it.
A sudden, sharp magical reaction causes Shayna to recoil as a jarring vision flashes before her.
Shauna dismisses Ian's concern, claiming the shock was merely static discharge from the magical residue.
The red-haired boy looks on with a bewildered expression.
In the clinic, Shanna requests to call for her mother and a man named Ron.
Shanna appears visibly troubled as she observes the unusual magical pattern. The blonde captive remains bound and gagged while lying on the bed. Shauna looks back as someone announces the arrival of a new beastman.
A silver-haired man named Renate greets Shauna, noting that she remembers him.
Shayna expresses her surprise at seeing Renate after such a long time. Renate looks at Shauna thoughtfully, remarking on how much time has passed.
Renate notes her improved speech, and Shayna asks to speak with him informally.
A faint smile touches Renate's lips as he looks at the young girl.
Renate asks for the reason behind her summons while standing near some wheelchairs.
Renate identifies the captive girl as a member of the Canary Beastman tribe. Shayna repeats the term canary in confusion, seeking more information from Renate.
Renate explains that Canary Beastmen are popular among nobles, and this one likely escaped.
Lady Anais enters the room, noting the large number of guests present.
Lady Anais smiles warmly while approaching the group in the medical room.
Anais chides Renate for his absence, but he dryly notes he is still alive. Shanna ignores her mother's arrival to point out the child's condition.
A dark, flame-like symbol on the girl's skin is identified as a demon's mark. This sinister mark on the girl's ankle represents a direct connection to the demons.
Lady Anais observes the mark, realizing they have finally found a crucial lead.
Anais tasks Renate with investigating the records of the child sale.
Renate points out that the Beastman is cursed and asks if Shauna can help.
Shanna tells her mother she believes she can remove the curse if she tries.
Anais permits her to attempt the removal, but warns her to stop if necessary.
Anais encourages her daughter with a head pat, and Shauna accepts the challenge.
Shanna channels her golden magical energy toward the child's branded ankle.
Intense concentration fills Shauna as her mana swirls around the patient.
Shanna believes she is close to completing the purification of the demonic mark. A sudden chilling voice whispers that she has been found, terrifying Shanna. A shadowy clawed hand manifests and lunges toward Shauna during the ritual. Shanna recoils in fear as the spectral hand swipes violently through the air. The magical connection breaks as Shauna's hand jerks away from the patient's ankle. Shanna gasps for air, visibly shaken by the malevolent interference she just experienced.
A dark cloud of smoke lingers over the bed, signaling the treatment's failure.
Shanna realizes a demon actively interfered with her attempt to save the first patient.
Anger replaces fear as Shauna vows to confront the demon for ruining the treatment.
The Canary Beastman girl sleeps peacefully despite the failed attempt to remove the mark. A maid asks about the hospital schedule, and Shanna explains the delay.
Shanna notes that the hospital opening is postponed until next week due to missing items. The maid mentions a family tea time before Raven departs for the autotomy.
The maid expresses concern about the Beastman waking up and causing trouble.
Evelyn reassures Shauna while Shauna tells her to get some rest for the night.
Exhausted, Shanna slumps onto a seat in the grand hall of the manor.
A peaceful vision of Shauna and the sleeping Beastman child appears.
At a tea table, Shayna's father jokes about her knocking out a patient.
Lady Anais questions if Shayna plans to continue her hospital work the next day.
Shanna explains her plan to wait for the patient to wake up for a diagnosis.
Shayna looks determined as she focuses on her responsibilities as a healer.
Sipping her tea, Lady Anais reflects on Shayna's privileged but hardworking nature.
Shayna considers the total lack of stories regarding her parents' families and why she never asked. Her father mentions that Raven's departure for the academy will likely leave Shauna feeling very lonely. Shayna surprises him by stating she is actually quite glad about the prince's upcoming departure. Shayna recalls her previous dislike for him and is asked how she truly feels about Raven. She explains that she does not dislike Raven despite his occasionally irritating personality and behavior. Her father asks if being with him is simply better than dealing with a complete stranger. Shayna notes Raven is kind because he patiently accepts it whenever she hits him out of frustration.
She admits that his handsome face allows her to overlook a certain level of daily irritation.
Her father stares at her with a speechless expression after hearing her standard for choosing companions. Shayna quickly backtracks and tells her father that he is obviously more handsome than the prince.
Shayna walks alone through the grand mansion hallway toward a large set of ornate double doors.
Shayna sits quietly in the medical room, keeping watch over the still sleeping blonde patient. Shayna observes the girl and wonders if something went wrong during her recent magical treatment. Shayna sits up straight with a look of surprise when she notices the patient starting to move. A bowl of warm vegetable soup is presented as Shayna notes that Maria prepared the meal. The blonde patient slowly opens her eyes and begins to regain consciousness on the medical bed. Shayna greets the girl with a cheerful expression, asking if she is finally awake.
Shayna asks if her voice was the cause of her waking as the girl sits up.
The girl looks at Shauna with a cold, suspicious gaze while Shauna offers her some food. Shayna encourages the girl to eat the meal before it loses its warmth and flavor.
Shayna reassures her that she has no hidden agenda and she doesn't have to eat now.
Shayna apologizes for her rough methods, but the girl immediately calls her a liar regarding her treatment. The girl claims magic and divine power are useless on beastmen and mocks Shauna's intelligence.
Shayna reminds the girl of the healing she already performed and asks if she remembers it.
Shayna tells her to eat the soup first to regain the strength necessary for more treatment.
The girl bluntly states that she has no money to pay for any of the care provided. Shayna is confused by the comment while the girl grits her teeth in a defensive manner. The girl reflects that even if sold, her ruined voice makes her worth only a few pennies.
The girl yells that her wings were plucked and her vocal cords ruined by cruel humans.
She continues shouting about how her wing feathers were ripped out and her voice was destroyed.
The girl asks what Shauna truly wants from her, believing her condition cannot be fixed.
She accuses Shauna of playing a charity game just to feel superior to those more pitiful.
The girl eats a spoonful of soup while stating she will never cry and thanks Shauna.
Shayna remains calm and kindly asks if the soup has cooled down enough for her.
The girl is stunned by the lack of reaction and asks what Shauna is trying to do.
The girl vows never to trust humans, recalling how they kidnapped her family and killed her sister.
A traumatic flashback shows the girl's wings being torn off in the death of her sibling.
The girl trembles with deep-seated rage, declaring her absolute refusal to ever trust another human.
Shauna remains firm and tells the girl to eat so she can recover her physical strength.
The girl shouts that she refuses to eat anything given to her by a human.
Shayna sincerely tells the girl she wants her to be healthy instead of hurting herself with anger.
The girl glares at Shayna and demands to know what she could possibly understand about her life.
Shayna expresses her wish for everyone to live strongly and find happiness despite the pain. The girl reacts with shock to Shayna's empathy and the realization of her rough life alone. They sit in a tense silence as the girl processes Shauna's surprisingly kind words.
The girl's hand tightly grips the bedsheets as she struggles with her conflicting emotions. The blonde girl hangs her head in silence, seemingly moved by Shauna's unexpected display of care.
Shayna knocks on the girl's door to play, and the girl yells at her to go away. Shayna laughs and says she will keep calling her kiddo until she reveals her real name.
A glimpse of bright red hair is shown as a new character walks past the door.
Leon and Ian look on with identical expressions of curiosity as they observe the situation. The blonde beastman girl curls up defensively on the bed, her expression sharp and wary. Shayna firmly orders Leon and Ian to apologize to the girl for their previous behavior.
The red-haired boys are baffled by the demand and ask what they actually did wrong.
Shayna points out that their presence is clearly terrifying the patient, demanding they show some remorse.
Shayna warns them that she will be deeply disappointed if they fail to apologize immediately.
A heavy silence fills the room as the boys realize the weight of Shauna's expectations. One of the boys steps forward, his boots clicking softly against the polished manor floor.
Bowing deeply in unison, Leon and Ian offer a sincere apology for their intimidating conduct.
Lily reacts with wide-eyed shock before closing her eyes and turning away from the group.
Shayna praises Lily for eating her soup, but the girl insists it was only for strength.
Shayna explains the clinic's delayed opening and promises Lily can leave once she is healed.
Shayna offers to leave the room if Lily reveals whatever is currently on her mind.
Shayna compliments the girl's name, noting that Lily is the name of a lovely flower. With a cheerful wave, Shayna tells the girl to rest and promises to return later. Shayna closes the door behind her, leaving Lily alone to process the unexpected kindness shown.
As they walk, the boys question Lily's attitude and mention that clinic supplies have arrived.
Shayna asks Evelyn if she wants to talk to Lily, but Evelyn seems quite hesitant.
Evelyn admits she feels bad for Lily and understands why she finds trusting humans difficult.
Evelyn observes that Lily's denial of the truth is only making her own burden heavier. Sitting alone, Lily wonders why Shauna cares and thinks it would be easier being ignored. The young beastman remains conflicted, unable to fully trust the kindness offered by the humans.
A sudden noise at the door causes Lily to snap her head around in alarm.
Lady Anais enters the room, her elegant presence immediately drawing the young girl's wary attention.
Lily notes the unannounced entry, but Anais claims she knocked before entering the medical room.
Anais assures the girl that she is safe because Shauna treats her with such great care.
Anais reveals she investigated Lily's past and knows she escaped from the cruel House of Heights.
Looking toward the mark, Anais asks who is responsible for branding Lily's ankle so cruelly.
Lily remains defiant, questioning Anais's motives and refusing to answer the interrogation without a fight. Anais maintains a cold gaze, stating she prefers an answer to avoid upsetting her daughter, Shauna.
Lily finally relents, identifying a mage serving the Count of Heights as the one responsible.
Anais vows to overturn that noble house while Lily bluntly asks to be left alone. Anais apologizes for the fright and asks Lily to keep their private meeting a secret. Lily nods in silent agreement, her guarded exterior slowly beginning to soften under the pressure.
Anais gently pats Lily's head, offering a final apology and a quiet word of gratitude. Lily stares in disbelief, shocked that another high-ranking human has offered her a sincere apology.
Memories of the boys and Anais apologizing swirl through Lily's mind as she reevaluates them.
Shanna's warm smile reflects her genuine hope and excitement for the clinic's upcoming successful opening.
A collection of character portraits serves as a narrative transition following the recent emotional confrontations. Shanna is overcome with excitement as the long-awaited week for her clinic's opening finally arrives.
Shanna admires Maria's professional look in a doctor's coat, and Maria seems pleased by it. The boys wear their new uniforms. One feels quite embarrassed while the other remains nonchalant.
Shanna compliments Evelyn on her outfit, noting that a stethoscope will complete the professional look. Reflecting on the upcoming week, Shauna feels a sense of accomplishment about opening her clinic.
Shanna realizes that her new career path as a magical healer fits her personality perfectly.
Maria poses confidently with her stethoscope, ready to assist in the clinic's daily medical operations.
Leon and Ian stand together in their matching orange uniforms, ready for their assigned tasks.
Evelyn and Shayna showcase their official clinic attire, marking the end of their long preparations.
Shayna poses with pride, feeling fully prepared to take on her new role as a doctor.
Shanna spits out her tea in shock after Anais casually mentions a sudden marriage proposal.
Lady Anais notes Shauna's age while Shauna finds her mother's specific phrasing quite unusual.
Raven explains that marriage proposals are inevitable for the only daughter of a high ducal house.
Raven attributes Shanna's popularity to her highly public charitable actions within the plague-stricken slums.
Raven mentions Shayna's new angelic reputation while Shayna blames him for her current involvement.
A small Raven avatar insists he went alone and never requested her company in the slums.
Raven claims Shanna likes him, while the Duke argues she is simply too kind to friends.
The blonde boy's avatar asserts the Duke previously acknowledged him as the best marital choice.
The Duke smiles through gritted teeth, insisting his daughter does not actually harbor any hatred.
Shayna raises her hand and hesitantly tries to interject into the men's intense conversation. Shanna is overcome with dread, fearing Raven is the one who sent the marriage proposal.
Lady Anais realizes she forgot to specify the suitor's identity as Shauna shouts in protest. Raven reveals the first prince is the one who actually sent the sudden marriage proposal.
Shanna reacts with pure bewilderment, wondering why a prince she has never met would propose. Raven suspects the prince has a hidden motive, staring intently as he considers the situation.
The first prince is revealed as Raven's sickly half-brother who was passed over for succession.
Shanna prefers Raven's company over a mysterious older prince she has never even seen before.
Lady Anais asks about Shayna's feelings for Raven, while Shayna assumes he actually dislikes her. Raven catches everyone off guard by bluntly declaring his genuine affection for his childhood friend.
Shayna questions the nature of the engagement, hoping Raven doesn't view a child romantically.
Raven shocks Shayna by announcing his upcoming 6-year departure to attend the prestigious Magic Academy.
Raven admits he wants an official engagement to ensure Shauna remains tied to him.
Shanna finds his dramatic concerns about their long separation to be completely over the top. Raven admits his possessiveness while Shauna realizes she is tired of constantly denying the truth.
The Duke warns Raven to be careful with his words as they face each other. The Duke labels the arrangement a shield engagement, while Raven vows to be an attentive fiancé.
Lady Anais suggests the two youths take a walk together to ease the rising household tension. The pair walks across a white bridge, their shadows stretching out over the palace garden. Shayna calls out to Raven as they stroll through the beautifully manicured estate grounds.
Shanna asks Raven if he is truly comfortable with an engagement born from such circumstances. Shanna highlights their 5-year age gap, questioning if he is really okay with this bond.
Raven looks back at Shanna and asks what their ages have to do with the situation.
Shanna worries the engagement will hinder his ability to date and make friends at school. Raven remains silent, staring at her with a thoughtful and somewhat intense golden gaze. Raven suggests they can break it off later, encouraging her to meet many other people. Their hands are shown gripped tightly together as they continue their walk on the path.
Raven looks Shauna in the eye and reaffirms the reality of their current official engagement.
Shauna notes his disadvantage in this deal, but Raven claims he never does anything disadvantageous.
Raven offers a soft, genuine smile while telling Shauna that she is all he needs.
Shauna feels a shiver of unease, questioning if Raven's possessiveness is actually just a friendship.
Shanna predicts he will quickly forget her once he experiences dating and academy life.
Shanna stares at Raven's back with a look of extreme skepticism regarding his bold claims.
The two walk together through the garden as the sun shines brightly over the greenery. The scene shifts to the next day, showing a large multi-story building in the town. Shayna is startled and demands to know why Raven is there when he claimed busyness. Raven explains he cleared his entire schedule to foster a closer connection with his new fiancé.
Shayna repeats her shocked inquiry about his sudden presence while standing in the ornate hallway.
Raven confirms he cleared his schedule to build goodwill with her before his academy departure.
Ian steps in and tells Raven to stop barging in and making Shauna feel uncomfortable.
Raven points out their long friendship and his fiancé status to dismiss the red-haired boy's concerns. Ian argues that he and his brother are more comfortable companions for Shauna's daily life. Raven demands Shauna choose between him and the twins, asserting his status as her fiancé. The red-haired twins, Leon and Ian, defiantly claim that Shauna is actually closer to them. Shanna dismisses all three boys, stating that she isn't closest to any of them today.
Shanna clings to Evelyn, declaring that she is actually closest to the black-haired beastman girl.
Shanna tells the twins to leave for their appointment while promising to stay at the hospital.
Leon and Ian express frustration, looking dejected as they are forced to leave Shauna behind. Raven smugly bids the twins farewell while they grumble about their bad timing for having plans. A maid informs Shauna she is heading to the smithy, advising her to signal if needed. Shanna tells Raven to leave if he's only seeking fun, as she has patients to see. Raven insists on joining Shayna, suggesting she give him a tour while visiting her patient. Shayna explains the layout of the hospital, noting the examination and inpatient floors as they walk.
Shauna highlights the third floor's storage and preparation rooms, asking Raven if he finds it impressive.
A hand knocks firmly on a decorative door, signaling their arrival at the patient's room. Shanna calls out to Lily while entering, reassuring her that a safe guest is accompanying her. Upon opening the door, Shauna stops in her tracks, visibly shocked by the scene inside.
A dark, monstrous shadow with glowing red eyes lunges toward the group from the room's window.
Evelyn shouts a warning and leaps in front of Shauna to protect her from the threat.
A massive explosion of light erupts as a defensive magical barrier is suddenly triggered in response.
Raven tells Shauna to stay back while he prepares to handle the situation with an artifact.
Smoke and light fill the room, leaving the characters wondering what exactly is currently happening.
Shanna is baffled by the intrusion, noting that her mother's defensive spells should be impenetrable.
Raven stares intently at the figure in the room, realizing the source of the chaos. The blonde girl, Lily, appears in a trance-like state, breathing heavily and looking highly unstable.
Shanna observes Lily's condition and realizes the girl is currently suffering from a powerful curse.
Lily screams in agony, clutching her head before lunging forward with animalistic claws and fangs. Shanna urgently orders Evelyn to block the attack as Lily charges at them in a frenzy.
Evelyn grapples with the cursed Lily, using her strength to hold back the girl's violent assault.
Evelyn manages to pin Lily to the floor, struggling to keep the girl restrained and safe.
Lily growls and snaps at her captor, her eyes wide with a terrifying, cursed intensity. Raven notes that only he can see the curse's manifestation and tells Shauna to move away.
Raven argues that having bait is useful while Shauna frantically asks where the guards are.
Raven admits he left the guards behind to keep their secret artifact from being revealed. Evelyn continues to restrain Lily, mentioning that the girl had only just begun her recovery. Lily suddenly releases a burst of dark energy, throwing Evelyn backward and away from her.
Shanna cries out in shock for Evelyn as the Beastman girl is knocked aside by Lily.
Evelyn grunts in pain and warns Shauna to stay away as Lily's curse continues to manifest.
Raven remains calm, his eyes fixed on the situation as he prepares for the next move. Shanna realizes the situation is critical and decides they must contact Maria immediately for help.
Shayna reaches for her pocket but gasps in realization that her signaling artifact is missing.
Shayna panics as she sees her magical artifact has fallen onto the floor beneath a couch. Lily lunges toward Raven, but she is violently repelled by a sudden flash of blue energy. Lily is thrown backward across the room by the force of the barrier, hitting the floor. Raven stands firmly behind a glowing blue shield as Lily lies defeated on the ground.
The cursed Lily stares through the magical barrier, her face contorted with desperation and rage.
Dark smoke emanates from Lily's hands as she claws at the blue shield protecting Raven.
Raven watches in shock as the powerful barrier begins to fracture under the curse's pressure. The magical shield shatters into pieces, leaving Raven vulnerable to the cursed girl's next attack. Raven grunts in pain, shielding himself as shards of the broken barrier fly through the air. Raven glares with determination, his teeth gritted as he faces the overwhelming power of the curse. A final desperate shout for Raven echoes through the room as the situation reaches a climax.
The cursed Lily lunges at Raven, but Shauna pushes him aside to take the hit.
Raven tells Shauna she's the target, and Shauna shouts for him to run quickly. Raven pulls Shauna into a protective embrace as a dark slash of energy strikes them.
Raven is slashed across the back, bleeding heavily as Shayna cries out in pure horror.
Raven claims he'd rather be hurt than Shauna because she cannot heal her own wounds.
Shayna stares at Raven's back in silence, processing the sacrifice he just made for her.
Raven kneels on the floor, struggling with his injury while Shauna stands firmly before him.
Raven calls out Shanna's name urgently as she begins to move away from him.
Raven orders Shauna to stay put while she tells him to stay down and rest.
Raven shouts that his injury doesn't matter while Shauna places a hand on his face.
Shayna asks Raven to trust her and wait while she handles the entire situation alone.
A close-up shows Shauna's hand gently touching Raven's face before she pulls him away.
Shanna uses a forceful movement to knock Raven back, making him fall to the ground.
Shayna slams the door shut, trapping Raven outside the room for his own personal safety.
Shauna resolves to handle the remaining problem as Lily screams and clutches her head.
Shanna recognizes the black mist as a curse she can potentially neutralize with her magic.
Shayna stands firm, preparing her magic to face the unstable and highly dangerous cursed girl.
Lily screams in agony and charges toward Shayna with animalistic ferocity and sharp claws.
Lily's clawed hand reaches for Shayna's throat as the distance between them closes rapidly.
Evelyn, the beastman girl, suddenly appears and grabs Lily from behind to restrain her.
Evelyn puts Lily in a chokehold as the cursed girl struggles and screams in protest.
Evelyn's eyes glow with intensity as she focuses her strength on holding the girl back.
Shanna hopes her desperate gamble works out as she charges her magic against the threat. Shanna presses her hand against Lily's chest, releasing a bright light to purge the curse.
The light fades, leaving Lily exhausted and slumped on the floor in the quiet aftermath.
Shayna looks at the unconscious girl, asking with concern if she is finally feeling okay. Evelyn confirms Lily has passed out, supporting the sleeping girl's head as she rests. Shayna thinks she would have erased the curse earlier, even if it were extremely risky.
A voice calls out to Shauna as she feels a dizzying sensation pulling her away. Shauna's eyes slowly blink open as she begins to regain consciousness in a white room.
Shayna sits up and questions where she is, noting the room looks like her house.
A brown-haired girl in a school uniform stands silently before the bewildered and confused Shauna.
Shauna asks the schoolgirl if she is really Mina, her sister from her past life.
Shanna is overcome with emotion, clutching her chest as she stares at her lost sister.
Mina asks why her sister left her alone after promising she never would go away.
Mina asks what she was supposed to do alone while Shauna stares back in shock.
Mina questions who asked Shauna to endure everything alone without even letting her help.
Shanna apologizes for being unable to endure any longer and for leaving her sister behind. Mina declares the act unforgivable as Shauna gasps and calls out her sister's name.
Mina asks why the promise was broken and why Shauna left her alone knowing the consequences.
Shayna thinks of the secret relief she felt when she died in her past life.
Shayna thinks of her current happy life and wonders what to say to her sister. Mina declares her hatred and tells Shayna to come with her while demanding she return. Shayna gasps for air while asking the girl before her who she actually is.
Shayna struggles against the grip on her throat, her hands reaching up to the attacker.
The figure smirks and asks Shauna how she knew she wasn't actually the real Mina.
Shayna explains that Mina would never drag others down regardless of how much she hated.
Shayna tells the boring illusion to move aside because it is not fun and annoying. The schoolgirl's illusion begins to dissolve, revealing the dark silhouette of a mysterious man. A tall man with long black hair and a smirk is revealed in the dark void.
Seth asks Shauna if his disguise as a little girl was effective, claiming he prepared it as a gift.
Shayna stares at the black-haired man in shock and demands to know his identity.
The mysterious silhouette reveals his name is Seth. He has very long, dark hair.
Seth identifies himself as a subordinate of Belial, a high-ranking marquis from the demon realm. Seth offers a deal where he will spare the crown prince if Shauna continues meeting him in dreams.
Seth explains his contractor demands an assassination so his failure wouldn't be a breach of contract.
Seth argues the deal is beneficial since Shayna can save Raven if he remains alive.
Seth looms over Shauna, claiming her authority as useless and he could kill her at any time.
Seth smugly asks if the deal is worth trying, while Shayna questions if he is threatening her.
Faced with the demon's overwhelming power, Shauna sighs and reluctantly agrees to his proposed deal.
Seth leans forward and places a gentle kiss on Shayna's forehead to seal their agreement.
Shanna clutches her forehead in disbelief, demanding to know what the demon thinks he is doing.
The dreamscape begins to warp and dissolve around Seth as Shauna begins to lose consciousness.
The scene transitions with a title card, suggesting a shift back to the waking world. Shayna's eyes flutter open, signaling her return to consciousness after the encounter in her dream.
Shayna sits up and recognizes her surroundings, noting that she has finally returned to her home.
Shayna vows not to forget her grudge for Seth using her sister's face to toy with her.
Shanna lies in bed, quietly processing the traumatic events and the deal she just made.
Maria sits by Shanna's bedside looking concerned as Shanna weakly calls out to her mother.
Maria is relieved that Shayna is awake, while Shayna insists she is fine after fainting briefly.
Maria retorts that fainting is never fine, expressing deep worry over her daughter's sudden collapse.
Maria explains how worried everyone was while Shauna quietly acknowledges her mother's presence.
Maria tearfully explains that Shanna's parents would be heartbroken if anything happened to her.
Shanna apologizes for worrying her mother and insists she's truly okay while touching Maria's face.
Shayna asks about Raven and Evelyn, and Maria confirms that both of them are safe.
Maria's expression becomes grim as the conversation shifts to Lily's current status after the incident.
Maria reveals she barely stopped Evelyn from killing Lily, who is now safe despite the chaos.
Maria notes Lily should be grateful Shanna treated her, otherwise she wouldn't have let it slide.
The bedroom doors burst open as someone calls out for Shanna with great urgency and relief.
Camille rushes into the room and pulls Shauna into a tight, protective embrace.
Camille admits fatherhood is harder than expected, having nearly had a heart attack several times recently.
Shayna smiles warmly and pats her father's arm, reassuring him that he doesn't need to worry.
Raven tells Shauna not to lie about her condition, arguing that fainting proves she isn't fine.
Shanna asks about Raven's back injury, but he insists that now is not the time for that. Shanna is shocked that Raven hasn't been treated yet, demanding to know why he's ignoring his wound.
Raven explains that revealing his injury would cause a bigger fuss than he wants to deal with.
Raven suggests Shauna simply heal him so it will be as if the injury never happened.
Shanna sighs and tells Raven to come closer so she can tend to his serious wound. Raven sits before Shanna, revealing a deep, bloody gash across his back that needs immediate healing.
Shauna realizes she must keep this secret to prevent her parents from reacting poorly to the situation.
Shanna reflects that Seth kept his promise, as he could have easily killed Raven if he wished.
Shanna concludes that while the deal with the demon feels gross, it was the right choice.
Shanna looks up in surprise as she is suddenly addressed by someone else in the room.
Evelyn stands near the stairs, looking down at Shauna with an expression of quiet concern and sadness.
Shayna walks across the floor toward the beastman girl, ready to offer her some comfort.
Shayna and Evelyn share a close hug, finding solace in each other's presence after the traumatic ordeal.
Evelyn vows to get stronger while Shayna laughs and says she has already done more than enough.
Lily slowly walks down the stairs, her head bowed as she appears deeply troubled and somber.
Shayna asks Lily if she is hurt anywhere, expressing genuine concern for the girl's well-being.
Lily looks up with hollow eyes and asks Shauna to kill her as soon as possible.
Lily looks down with hollow eyes and asks Shauna to kill her as soon as possible.
Shanna asks what she is talking about after all the effort put into her care.
Lily argues she hurt everyone and believes she must pay the price for her actions.
Shanna explains the girl was controlled by a curse and she understands the entire situation.
Lily stares in disbelief, noting that Shanna is acting very strange and unusual right now. Lily fidgets nervously while looking down as Shauna watches her with a very calm expression.
Shanna smiles warmly and asks Lily if she truly feels sorry for her past actions.
Lily yells that she obviously does because she hurt people, but she is quickly interrupted.
Shanna stands across from the blonde girl in a brightly lit room to continue docking.
Shayna strikes a confident pose while pointing one finger upward with a cheerful, determined expression.
Lily asks what Shauna means as the golden-haired girl points a finger directly at her.
Shayna clarifies she means payment with labor and warns Lily not to misunderstand her intent. Ron asks in shock if she really intends to hire a canary beastman at the hospital.
Shayna says Lily was controlled and is fine now since the curse is completely gone.
Shayna sighs and wonders why no customers have arrived despite putting Lily in charge. Renat notes no one would enter a building dripping with money because it looks suspicious.
Shanna asks Ron if he has sick friends and offers half-price fees for the week.
Ron is shocked she charges fees while Shauna retorts that money does not grow elsewhere.
Ron explains he runs an orphanage, but many people in the area do not trust him.
Renat explains they protect children separately because they cannot hide their animal features well yet.
Renat asks if she wants to see the children while Shauna excitedly shouts her abbreviate.
Renat offers to lead her to the orphanage while Shauna responds with genuine surprise.
Shayna looks incredibly excited about the visit while Evelyn watches her with a skeptical look.
Two young beastman girls with animal ears and tails play together in a happy scene.
Shanna realizes that the children's inability to hide their features is why they stay inside. Renat invites her closer, but Shauna asks if meeting humans is against their established rules.
Renat claims Shauna is an exception since she brought her there, making her ask why. Renat looks down at Shauna while she stares back with a look of pure confusion.
Shanna thinks it is odd that Raven and Renat both describe meeting her as picking her up.
Renat asks Shauna to join his pack, but she declines to avoid feeling left out.
Renat says he doesn't have gray fur either and regrets not taking her with him.
Shayna looks down in surprise as children run toward her with great speed and excitement.
A young silver-haired beastman boy hugs Shanna tightly and asks who the big sister is.
Shanna is overcome by cuteness, noting the sparkling eyes of the children are incredibly adorable.
The scene shifts to a large, ornate mansion standing under a bright orange sunset sky.
A maid asks Shauna if she had fun, and she happily confirms she was very happy. The maid suggests sponsoring the children outright if Shauna likes them as much as she says.
The maid argues sponsoring would be easier and cheaper than the cost of building a hospital.
Shanna says helping unasked is rude since Ron and Renat never requested any specific assistance.
Shanna asks how Maria would feel if someone offered her something while calling her pitiful.
The maid argues that Renat was desperate enough to kidnap Shauna for the sake of help.
The maid notes that supporting children is a very common practice among most of the nobility.
Shayna explains unasked help is just meddling and Ron can support his family on his own.
The maid accuses Shauna of just wanting the kids at the hospital to avoid studying.
Shayna mentions that her father already told her he would teach her all the lessons himself. A close-up of Shauna's eyes shows her realizing that tomorrow is the day Raven finally leaves. Fireworks explode over the castle as a message announces a party will continue until night today.
Camille is addressed by his title as he looks towards someone with a serious expression.
Raven is addressed by his royal title while standing in a grand hall in formal attire. Camille asks if he met the king while Raven confirms he was summoned earlier today. Camille thanks Prince Raven for helping to successfully settle the complicated marriage negotiations. Raven asserts his determination to remain firm and not back down from his stance. Camille promises his support if Shayna shares his feelings, mentioning his own recent engagement. Raven stares forward with a pensive look as he processes the weight of their conversation. Camille playfully teases Raven, noting that he isn't exactly the cute type of person. Raven remains silent and contemplative as he prepares for the responsibilities that lie ahead.
Raven reminds himself to stay vigilant and keep his guard up during these tense times.
An attendant bows and informs the prince that the king has requested his immediate presence. Camille urges Raven to follow him as they leave the ornate hall to meet the king.
Camille sighs, reflecting on the exhausting nature of social gatherings and dealing with many people.
Camille rubs his temples, feeling overwhelmed by the drain of the recent engagement announcement.
Two elegant, wax-sealed letters rust together, symbolizing the formal ties being forged between noble houses.
Renat gazes out at the town under a darkening sky, knowing they must take action.
The royal mansion glows brightly under a vast, star-studded sky as the night deepens. Camille returns home and finds comfort in Maria's arms, announcing his long-awaited arrival. Camille leans into Maria, admitting he was bored away from her and asking for updates.
Maria details how a notorious curse mage manipulated slaves to carry out high-profile assassinations.
Maria compares the marks on the victims, realizing the wet nurse was also under demonic control.
Camille finds some small comfort in knowing the wet nurse did not act by choice.
Maria gently touches Camille's face while they share a quiet moment of mutual relief and understanding.
Maria explains the demon vanished and the mastermind remains unknown as the Count wasn't the contractor.
Maria describes the massive investigation underway throughout the capital to find the source of the curse. Maria admits that tracking down someone who intentionally stays hidden will be a difficult task.
Maria wonders if Shauna knows more than she lets on, given her strange request to stop searching.
Camille hugs Maria, noting that Shauna has always seemed far more mature than her age suggests.
Shanna relaxes on her large bed while distracted by her thoughts and the papers she holds.
Shanna hears a noise and looks toward the side of the room with a curious expression. Shanna approaches the stairs and calls out to see who has entered her room so late.
Shayna is surprised to see Raven standing there and questions what he wants at this hour.
Raven casually suggests they play together, causing Shauna to look at him in complete shock.
Raven reminds Shayna of his departure tomorrow, and she confirms she already knew about his plans.
Raven laments how the recent chaos ruined his plans to spend more time with her. Raven extends an invitation for a night stroll, hoping to make up for the lost time. Raven tells a confused Shayna to trust him as he promises he has something special prepared.
Shayna hesitates, worrying that her sudden absence will cause her parents to panic and worry.
Raven stands confidently with his arms crossed, revealing he has already secured her parents' permission.
A flashback shows Raven informing Camille of his intention to take Shauna out for the night. Raven remains determined to follow through with the night stroll despite any lingering doubts Shauna has.
Raven reaches out and firmly takes Shauna's hand, urging her to hurry so they can leave.
Raven looks back with a bright, charming smile and promises her the best night of her life.
The town square is decorated with colorful banners around a fountain under the evening sky.
Shauna and Raven stand disguised in hoods as brilliant fireworks explode in the sky above them.
Shayna is filled with wonder, exclaiming that she has never experienced anything like this festival before. Raven clears his throat and prepares to say something important to Shauna as she watches.
Shayna spots street food in the distance and excitedly dashes away before Raven can finish speaking. Raven warns Shauna to stay close to him so she doesn't get lost in the crowd.
Raven walks through the cobblestone square, keeping a close eye on his energetic companion.
Shayna happily explores the festival grounds, her white cloak fluttering as she moves through the area.
Raven questions the amount of food Shauna bought while she insists this is her only chance. Shayna beams with joy and thanks Raven for giving her such a wonderful and new experience.
Shayna happily devours skewers, noting she is rarely allowed such food or even tiny tastes normally.
Shauna offers Raven a skewer as he notes no one will steal the food from her.
Shayna finds the food delicious and jokingly asks if Raven is too pampered to eat it.
Raven looks slightly flustered while adamantly denying that he is too pampered for street food. Raven takes a massive bite of the skewer to prove he can enjoy the festival food. The pair strolls through the festival together before eventually taking a seat on a nearby bench. Shayna beams with joy, exclaiming how much fun she had during their night at the festival.
A close-up shows Raven watching Shayna as she offers him a sincere and heartfelt thank you.
Shayna reflects on the freedom of the night, promising that she will never forget their time together.
Raven remains silent, his face showing a subtle blush as he processes Shauna's gratitude and happiness.
Raven searches his cloak and presents Shauna with a small box containing a beautiful golden ring.
Shayna looks at the gift in complete disbelief, questioning why he is giving her a ring.
Raven clarifies that the ring is a magical artifact she can use to contact him anytime.
Raven gently asks Shanna for her hand so he can present the gift to her properly. Raven slides the artifact ring onto Shauna's finger as they sit together under the night sky.
Raven smiles warmly, noting how pretty the ring looks and telling Shauna to wear it well.
Shanna stares at her hand in a daze, quietly whispering Raven's name as she processes the gift.
Raven teases Shauna about her height while she irritably promises she will be taller next time.
Shanna tells Raven to stay safe and visit, admitting she might miss him just a little bit.
Raven offers a soft, knowing smile as he looks at Shayna before they conclude their evening. Fireworks light up the sky as Raven suggests heading home, while Shayna's narration hints at future unknowns.
The two walk away into the night together, concluding their final stroll before Raven's departure tomorrow.
Shayna stares wistfully after Raven leaves for the academy, right as a serious new problem arises.
Shayna panics at the hospital, shouting in despair because there are absolutely no patients seeking help. Maria rushes in to announce their first human visitor, causing Shauna to look up in shocked excitement.
Shanna decides to hide as the visitor approaches, despite Maria warning she won't see anything. Shayna crawls under the desk while Maria tells her to make sure she hides herself well. Shanna waits excitedly under the desk, determined to heal their first patient perfectly once they enter.
An elderly man with a gray mustache and a brown hat enters the hospital room slowly.
Maria asks about his ailments while the man explains he is searching for a rumored angel.
Maria looks perplexed as she questions the man's claim about an angel residing in their time.
The man describes a healing angel whose mere smile is said to wash away a person's pain. Shanna reacts with shock from her hiding spot as she listens to the man's glowing description.
Maria starts coughing nervously and tells the man to continue after she composes herself for a moment.
The elderly man leans forward with a smile, asking Maria if she knows anything about this angel.
Maria denies meeting any angel, but the man retorts that the child hiding nearby isn't one either.
The man points directly toward the desk as Maria reacts with a look of pure, panicked shock.
The man notes Maria's frequent glances toward the floor while she tries to laugh off her nervousness. The man explains that a faint rustling sound like a fairy's presence caught his keen attention immediately.
Maria realizes the man isn't dangerous and has known about Shanna's location since he first arrived.
Maria tells Shauna she has been found, prompting the nervous girl to look up from her spot.
Shanna slowly begins to climb out from under the desk as Maria confirms her cover is blown.
The man stares at Shauna with interest as she finally reveals herself from her hiding place.
Shanna greets the man shyly, insisting she isn't an angel and that the rumors are just exaggerations.
The man laughs heartily, remarking that Shauna seems more like a fairy than a literal angel. Shauna looks at the elderly man tentatively and asks if she should address him as a grandfather. The man reacts with explosive shock, standing up and begging Shauna to call him that once more.
Maria hugs Shauna protectively as the elderly man is overcome by intense emotion at the girl's words.
The man apologizes for scaring them, explaining he had simply longed to hear that word for years.
The man explains he hasn't seen his granddaughter in 9 years and she'd be Shauna's size now.
Shayna contemplates whether the elderly man's granddaughter passed away based on his earlier story.
Hines praises Shauna's beauty, while a narrator suggests ignoring the fairy and angel comparisons.
Hines asks Shauna if he can visit her occasionally, hoping to build a connection.
Shayna reacts with shock and confusion at the man's sudden request to visit.
Hines reassures Shauna that she is free to refuse his request if she feels uncomfortable.
Hines dramatically laments his long journey home, causing Shauna to feel a wave of guilt.
Shanna relents and invites the elderly man to return to the hospital again the next day.
Hines agrees to return tomorrow, his expression turning satisfied as Shayna yields to his request. Hines pats Shauna's head affectionately while telling her how much he looks forward to their meeting.
Shanna remains frozen under the man's touch as he promises to see her the following day. Shayna waves a cheerful goodbye, calling out to the grandpa as he departs the hospital room.
Hines is moved to tears, overwhelmed by the joy of Shauna actually calling him her grandfather.
Maria and Camille discuss the visitor, questioning why a healthy man sought out an angel's healing.
A tense silence falls over the room as Camille and Maria process the mystery of the visitor.
Maria explains the man arrived after hearing rumors from far away about a legendary local angel. Shayna is confused and asks what specific rumors brought the man to see her.
Maria confirms the rumors claim Shauna is an angel, much to the young girl's embarrassment.
Camille and Maria inquire about the man's name and origins, but Shauna realizes she doesn't know. Shanna decides she will ask the man for his name when he visits the hospital tomorrow. Camille and Shayna plan for the family to go to the hospital together the next morning.
Shanna looks at her father with concern, asking if he is too busy for the trip.
Camille and Maria both vow to cancel all their appointments to accompany Shauna to the hospital. The sun shines over the town's tall, timber-framed buildings as a new day begins. Shanna and Hines sit across from each other in a grand, sunlit parlor for their meeting.
A black-haired girl watches suspiciously, noting the man arrived early and shows no signs of leaving.
The girl glares at the visitor, feeling uneasy about his familiar rapport with Shaw.
Camille and Maria burst into the room with bright smiles, announcing their arrival to Shauna.
Maria happily presents snacks to Shauna, admitting she already missed her despite seeing her that morning.
Hines remains seated on the sofa as Camille and Maria finally get a look at him.
Camille and Maria shrieked in absolute horror upon recognizing the visitor as Camille's father.
Shayna gapes in shock, realizing the grandpa she met is her actual biological grandfather. Hines blushes and admits he intended to reveal the truth once they became a bit closer.
Shanna calls him a liar, reminding him of his story about the missing granddaughter.
Shanna panics, explaining she only welcomed him because she thought he was grieving a dead granddaughter.
A formal notification identifies the elderly man as Hines, Shayna's paternal grandfather.
Hines is revealed to be the former Duke of Wentworth and former chairman of the Noble Council. Shayna is incredulous that a man of his status was wandering the capital without any escorts.
Camille questions his father for abandoning the duchy, while Hines retorts that it's now Camille's responsibility.
Hines accuses Camille of hiding Shayna for 9 years, while Camille defends his choice for her safety.
Hines reminds Camille of a past promise to visit, criticizing him for letting Shayna work outside.
Hines complains that Camille showed Shauna to everyone else but kept her from her own blood.
Hines expresses how desperately he wanted to meet his granddaughter, imagining her as a divine angel.
Hines observes that Shauna's face perfectly resembles both Camille and a woman named Anais.
Camille, Shauna, and Maria sit together in a row, nodding in agreement about the family resemblance. Hines proposes that the family spend summer vacation at the villa, but Shauna defers the decision.
Hines looks at Shauna with a pained expression, asking if she genuinely dislikes her grandfather.
Shanna looks away in silence, unable to immediately answer the elderly man's emotional question.
Hines tearfully begs Shayna to call him Grandpa just one more time like she did before.
Shayna refuses the request with a stern expression, standing her ground against his emotional display.
Hines dramatically clutches his chest, faking a heart attack in response to Shauna's blunt rejection. The guilt trip special, a classic move in every grandfather's playbook.
Shayna calls out Hines's bluff, stating she knows he isn't actually in pain while he looks dejected.
Shanna sits on her bed, remembering Raven's instructions to tap the magical ring 5 times to call him.
A bright light glows from Shauna's hand as she calls out Raven's name to test the artifact's power.
Raven's voice emanates from the ring asking what is wrong, while Shauna stares at it in complete shock.
Raven appears via a magical projection, noting how familiar the device feels, while Shauna remains silent in surprise.
Shanna claims she is unimpressed due to her past experience with cell phones, but Raven immediately calls her out.
Shauna argues that Raven is lying about her reaction since he cannot see her face through the ring's connection.
Raven holds his own ring and smiles, asking Shauna if she really thinks he does not know her well.
Shayna complains about the nagging and mentions her busy day, prompting Raven to ask what happened at the hospital.
Shanna excitedly tells Raven about meeting her biological grandfather and how he initially hid his true identity from her. Raven calls the grandfather a sly fox, causing Shayna to demand if he is bad-mouthing her new family member.
Shauna insists that the man is still her grandfather, while Raven notes her sudden protective defense of the stranger.
Raven teases Shauna, suggesting that she likely acted cold toward the elderly man despite her internal, caring feelings.
Shanna is stunned, questioning how Raven could possibly know her reactions so accurately while he is far away.
Raven explains that Shanna gets awkward when loved too much, then asks if she actually thought of him today.
Shanna reminds Raven that she is only 9 years old and calls his romantic lines a bit too dangerous.
Raven questions why daily thoughts are strange, while Shayna looks flustered and tells him to watch his mouth.
Shayna swings her legs while sitting on the bed, asking Raven if life at the academy is fun. Raven finds the academy annoying, while Shauna observes he seems to have no interest in his new school life.
Raven looks down at his ring, admitting that no one understands or entertains him as much as Shayna does.
Shayna suggests Raven should at least try to find someone else to connect with while at the academy.
Shanna narrates that Raven chooses not to find someone else because he is simply not interested in anyone else.
Raven reminds Shauna that she is his fiancée and tells her not to forget it before the conversation continues.
Shayna smiles, predicting that Raven will likely change his mind and tell her to date others in 2 years.
Raven's face flushes as he tells Shauna he is generous enough not to laugh if she retracts her words.
Shanna mentions the upcoming villa vacation and asks Raven when he will be able to return to the town.
Shayna looks completely horrified when Raven suggests it might take as long as 6 years for him to return.
Raven clarifies the return could even take 8 or 9 years, leaving Shanna in a state of utter disbelief.
Raven tells Shauna to mind the ring as she realizes she won't see him again for a long time.
Raven explains that Duke Algren complicated things by dumping an immense amount of work onto his young shoulders.
Raven asks if she is disappointed, but Shayna tells him to focus on work while she hides her sadness.
Raven stares at his ring, contemplating Shauna's earlier suggestion for him to look for someone else to date. Raven finds the idea that he could ever view Shauna as just another person to be completely laughable.
Raven reflects on how Shayna took all the specialness from his life since the moment they first met.
Raven remembers Shauna's promises to save him, admitting she made it impossible for him to love anyone else.
Shayna reflects on the moment she truly fell in love, finally acknowledging her deep, private feelings for Raven.
Shauna smiles softly to herself, admitting it hasn't been long since she finally realized her own heart's truth.
Raven clenches his fist, noting that while their love is currently one-sided, life is a very long game.
Raven offers a determined smile, telling Shayna to just wait and see how things develop in the future.
A collection of credits and community notices signals the end of this chapter's narrative journey.